All right. Push one in the chat if you can hear me. All right, I got a confirmation. Thank you for the confirmation. Welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 588, Black Economics Talk. Please hit the like button as you come in, share the video if possible, and hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust, including those posted on the community tab. There's a doc in the description beneath the video for you to follow along with. If you want to engage in the discussion, there'll be a link in the chat for you to click on. When you click on the link, make sure you raise your hand so that one of us can acknowledge you and advance you to the panel. Just as an FYI, we're not certified financial planners. Go to cfp.net and look up one in your area. All right, let me give a shout out to the people who showed up first. Super Triz, what it do? David Monroe, peace. Phantom Mute, peace to you. Alexander Bowles, peace. Unreasonable Man, peace to you as well. All right, man. Let's get started with the first item on the docket. Make sure my volume is up. All right, man. First item on the docket is from TechCrunch. Robinhood raises $320 million more, bringing its latest round to $600 million at an $8.6 billion valuation. The stakes keep getting higher for American discount brokerage Robinhood, which today disclosed that it had added hundreds of millions of dollars to its previously disclosed funding round, including the $280 million that the company had already announced. Robinhood said that it was pleased to share that it had raised an additional $320 million in subsequent closings. It's now $600 million funding round brings it to post-money valuation to $8.6 billion. Fortune first reported the news. A detail, but the new capital is part of the same round as it was raised at the same price. TechCrunch reported when the company's $280 million round was announced, the fintech company was worth $8.3 billion. Another $300 million in capital at a flat share price means that the company's valuation should have risen by only the dollar amount added as it did. Robinhood, new capital, was as unsurprising as its first tranche of this mega round. The former startup is seeing demand for its product surge as investors of all sizes take part in the year's huge equity volatility. Many investing and savings focused fintech companies are enjoying a huge year as consumers look to hoard and employ their cash. Robinhood has had a good business year, even if some of its practices have come under fire. The company pledged to tighten up parts of its platform relating to more exotic trading after the suicide of one of its users. For example, a topic that TechCrunch discussed at length last week. I remember that. What is inescapable is that Robinhood is having the, one hell of a year. When it might go public isn't clear, especially as the private company is having no problem raising capital without an IPO. But as its value continues to rise, it becomes an increasingly remote acquisition target. Yeah, I figure somebody's going to come in and try to scoop them up. But if they keep growing at the rate that they are, they may become too big. Okay. They may very well become too big to swallow. So, hey, what's going on, Shaw Willie? We talked about Robinhood before, and we kind of came to the consensus that Robinhood is probably one of the best platforms that you can use for, small time investing in stocks and other market vehicles. So, I mean, everyone else seems to be pretty satisfied with it, at least around here. So no complaints so far. All right, let me jump to the next item on the docket. All right, this is from medcitynews.com. This one was sent in by Dr. Phoenix. Amazon pilots primary care clinics for employees. Amazon is testing a pilot to offer primary care clinics for its employees. The company plans to open 20 locations operated by direct primary care startup Crossover Health. Interesting. Another big retailer is getting into primary care. Amazon.com Incorporated will open 20 clinics for its warehouse employees operated by direct primary care startup Crossover Health. The company announced on Tuesday. The clinics will be located near Amazon's fulfillment centers and operations facilities, with the first one opening in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Earlier this month, Walgreens shared plans to open hundreds of primary care clinics attached to its stores. Walmart, too, has started building health centers attached to its stores, which include primary care, dental, and a number of other common services. While these two efforts are focused on the general public's Amazon clinics will be limited to its employees. The idea of offering on-site healthcare for employees is not a new concept, especially among the large technology companies. In fact, Crossover Health offers similar services for Microsoft and Comcast. But since Amazon started a much hyped healthcare venture with Berkshire Hathaway and JP Morgan 2 years ago, industry experts have been watching for the company's next move. Earlier this year, Atul Gawande stepped down as CEO of the joint venture called Haven, though he will still remain on its board. Little has been shared about what Haven has achieved so far. 2 years ago, Amazon acquired online pharmacy startup PillPack for nearly $1 billion. And earlier this year, Amazon rolled out a telehealth service for its employees, not to mention its large employee base. The primary care pilot is expected to provide care for 115,000 employees and their families. Interestingly, Amazon is calling the clinics neighborhood health centers. Its plans to start with 5 locations: Dallas, Phoenix, Louisville, Detroit, and California's San Bernardino Valley. Crossover Health already has one site open in Las Colinas, Texas, according to the website. Across the US, an increasing number of patients do not have easy access to a primary care physician and instead utilize emergency or urgent care options, which is not only more expensive for patients, but also overlooks important preventative care opportunities. Amazon Vice President of Human Resources, Darcy Henry, said in a news release. The clinics will provide primary care and behavioral health services, physical therapy, pediatric services, and health coaching. If the pilot is successful, Amazon said it would expand to more cities. The company also touted its employee benefits with the announcement, despite recent investigations as to whether the company provided adequate safety measures for its employees in light of the COVID-19 outbreak. In an emailed statement, Amazon said it invested it has invested $800 million in response to the pandemic, including thermal cameras, masks, hand washing stations, and testing supplies. The New York Attorney General's office has reportedly been interviewing workers about claims that they face retaliation for speaking up about warehouse conditions, according to CNBC. At least 9 Amazon workers have died from COVID-19. Yeah, this was eventually going to happen. I foresee that Amazon is collecting a lot of this data and processing it of these employees in this pilot program. And they want to see if it's feasible to actually get directly into a national primary care, not primary care, but a national healthcare system. Okay. There's many different sort of, every state has a large conglomerate of these sort of systems in place. But Amazon, being the 800-pound gorilla in the room, have a lot of flexibility because they have a lot of technology to push, and they can get a lot done quicker than any of these other legacy institutions. And so they are a big threat in this area. And they're not going to slow down, unless the government breaks them apart. But they're not going to slow down. I foresee that they are going to go all the way with this. What's going on, Super Triz?
What's going on, Mike V?
Chilling.
Yeah, appreciate you having me. Shout out to everybody in the live chat. As you said earlier, this is not a new concept. Some years ago, I had applied with a BP, which is a large oil company. BP has had this this particular model in place for many years now. But at any rate, it's interesting that this article never mentions Seattle, because there's already this particular model in place with Amazon in Seattle. As a matter of fact, this past week, we just threw a going away party for one of our colleagues who left the ICU to go work at Amazon because the Amazon actually pays more, and it's cakewalk work. Working in the actual ambulatory care clinic, it can get busy, but the work itself isn't necessarily challenging. ICU work is actually quite challenging, both mentally and physically challenging. So it's quite the departure. And he has an actual pay increase to boot. So shout out to him. So I think that, Amazon does offer an attractive alternative for those people who are looking to increase their revenue, but at the same time decrease the amount of effort necessary to amass that income. So it's like a double-edged sword, and it really has the potential to pilfer talent from other organizations. Because people look at Amazon as something that's, they look at it as a stable entity. So some of these hospitals, their stability is not going to be necessarily a selling point against Amazon. And so people have to find a way to actually compete, or not necessarily people, but these business entities will have to find a way to compete in order to retain or obtain top level talent. So that's just something to think about as well.
Yeah, I think what's going to happen, these legacy corporations for healthcare, when Amazon starts to move into their area, they're going to band together and try to break Amazon apart, or do whatever they can and put statutes in place so that Amazon can't creep into the areas. They're not going to go out without a fight.
Yeah, a lot of businesses already have existing contracts with some of these healthcare organizations, and these healthcare organizations, provide for them their employee health component. So if there's an on-site injury, or if there's suspicion of some type of intoxication, that employee is referred to a specific healthcare organization for their primary care follow-up process. So Amazon also, they're able to control costs because they employ their own, healthcare staff. So now there's not an opportunity for, there's always an opportunity for compromise, but the opportunity for compromise is considerably less because, they're employed by Amazon as opposed to being employed by some other entity or maybe even a private practice where an employee can go to a physician outside of the particular company where that employee is employed and say, hey, I got injured at work. I need, X amount of days off. And doctor's like, well, yeah, because he's employed by that particular patient. So in order to maintain that particular patient's business, he's going to do what's necessary. He or she's going to do what's necessary to appease that patient. That includes certain unethical things like giving off work orders or prescribing narcotic analgesics or some type of sedative, hypnotic, or even anti-anxiolytic medications. Not necessarily for the treatment of a particular ailment, but the patient's is actually for that prescription for the euphoric effect. And, things like that, won't happen with the Amazon physician or Amazon nurse. So I think they've really looked at this whole model, and even though they will present it as something beneficial to the employee, but it's more beneficial to the company itself.
Oh, we got going 11 on the panel.
Hey, what's going on? What's going on, Triz? What's going on, Mike?
Chill, man, chilling.
Yeah, deal of it is also, I think the biggest thing is, I definitely think Super Triz is right. But as far as even the bigger picture piece here is they don't want these Amazon people to unionize and to really be able to get a better deal for themselves. They're really trying to stop that whole process. So I'm breaking a lot of this down also to the union movement here in this country that's basically died off. This should be a unionized company with what's going on. And they would get a better deal, certainly for the workers with respect, not only just to pay, but of course for better healthcare and so forth, for better response there. And Bezos and them, however they want to run it, they don't want to do that. So I find that highly problematic, and I'm starting to see that. I think we need more of that. We certainly going to need more of that, especially with a company like Amazon, the amount of employees that it has, the warehouses and so forth, and the kind of risks that a lot of these people are at and what they're putting them underneath. That's why, kind of like you, I have an Amazon account and I've been holding back, man, because I'm not approving of what I'm seeing from them. From a standpoint of workers, people should have the opportunity, man, to be able to work safe and have the proper type of coverage even for themselves to be right on the job. And I'm definitely not liking what I'm seeing there.
Yeah, when I found out how Amazon was treating black people, I stopped supporting them. That was years ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'll buy from Barnes and Noble, I'll buy from eBay, I'll buy from from anywhere else, but I'm not buying from Amazon.
I totally agree with you. I have to agree. And that brother who ultimately got fired, but was kind of leading for the union movement, the kind of facts and statistics he came out with as far as what was going on there as a company and how people were being adversely affected. And Lord knows there are a lot of frontline people who got very sick on that job. Some even died. I have to look at this whole organization as it being rapacious and absolutely and having no care at all for the people who are working for them. None whatsoever.
Yeah, and got people living inside their cars, man. This is ridiculous. Like I can't accept that. I can't do it. So
they need to be unionized. But anyway.
Yeah.
Well, one last thing, Mike, as you said that Amazon is kind of using this as a test bed for the actual infrastructure for their own, healthcare entity. And what I actually see is, Amazon actually entering not only into primary care, but actually potentially even entering into acquiring actual inpatient care facilities, and then they're like a one-stop shop. So not only do they offer these healthcare services to the public, but because they actually own these entities, now when they provide healthcare coverage to their employees, it's all in-house, and they can really, really control costs.
Hey, Triz.
Yes.
Do you think that this will be a good move for Amazon? Do you think this will be a benefit for its employees as well?
I think it'd be a benefit to Amazon as an entity more than anything. I mean, any benefit to its employees would just be coincidental. I really doubt that the true intention is to benefit the employees. I mean, but just as a business model, you do want to have some type of employee satisfaction, obviously. But I mean, the end all be all is to lower costs overall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the thing
increase profit margins.
Yeah, because that's Amazon's.
Wow.
Yeah, Amazon's an 800-pound gorilla. I don't think they really care all that much about their employees, but they'll leverage the data of their employees in order to to determine whether or not this is a model that we can actually go forward with. I'm pretty sure they're all their data analytics and science teams and stuff like that have looked at all of this, but they have to test it on their employees first. So, I mean, I guess one of the benefits of being an Amazon employee, at least at that level, is you get access to Prime or something like that. I don't know, man.
I mean, but think about it from this perspective, right? So say you're Amazon, right? And you have this business where you actually, you provide shipping services and you for different products and different vendors, right? And so now you expand to where now you're having a storefront, for groceries, right? So you swallow up that particular that market share. Now you're entering into the healthcare industry, right? And so now your employees don't have to go. Your own employees buy groceries from you. Your own employees get stuff shipped through your company. Your own employees get healthcare through your company. Next, you're going to see Amazon entering into commercial real estate. You're going to see Amazon, and when I say commercial real estate, I'm talking about commercial real estate as far as like large apartment complexes, because not only is it profitable, but it's a way to to park money. So now you have employees who actually stay at Amazon buildings, Amazon-owned buildings, buy Amazon groceries, buy Amazon healthcare. So it's like the money consistently circles right back to Amazon. Money never leaves Amazon. That's the whole concept.
Yeah. And pretty soon they'll have their own Amazon coin or something like that. Let me jump to the next.
No, Amazon's making a lot of money. They're one of the few companies out here right now. I mean, really, really, really killing it. Really killing it right now.
Yeah. Let me jump to the next item on the docket. This is from Bloomberg. Airline traffic will return to normal in 3 to 5 years. Let's check this out.
Is when do we start to see passenger traffic for these airlines get anywhere close to normal?
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see that for 3 to 5 years. If you consider normal, 2.5 million that were traveling a year ago at this time, figure that 30% of that was international and 30% of that at least was business. So, when you think about the fact that Americans really aren't welcome places and people aren't traveling here because of our issues with quarantine rules and things that are closed still, I would say that 1.5 million of 2.5 million people would go into that bucket, and that would mean the best we can do in the short term is 1 million, and we're at around 700,000 people a day, and that's stalled out. The rate of growth is slowed, to your point, because of the increase in cases that we're seeing in the Sunbelt states, as well as the quarantine rules in the Northeast.
So as it stands, airlines doing enough? In this case, has Delta done enough, particularly when it comes to the cash burn? It looks as though they're still aiming to reduce that to zero, but many questioning whether they'll manage it.
Yeah. So, I think that's a really great question, because you have an airline You have costs related to an airline that size to be, twice as big as what it really is and where we're going to probably be at the end of the year. So I suspect that no, they're not doing enough yet. I think you'll see them announce additional aircraft retirements. They've already announced about 100. We think they probably need to announce at least another, 50 or so, and most of that is going to be your international. And then for furloughs, I mean, we've talked about this, in the past, how painful it is when people get those notices. That's why they're trying really hard to do it through voluntary retirement programs and other, leave of absences and other ways of getting the payroll down. But, remember, the costs that they're experiencing right now are not entirely accurate because the federal government is paying about 80% of the wages that they cover for the second and for the third quarter. The wages will resume, for the airlines in the December quarter when the payroll support program dissipates or goes away, unless the government steps up with more money. And frankly, we don't see that happening. We don't think there's any appetite for that.
In that case, Helene, how concerned are you about leverage ratios? I increasingly hear, I believe American Airlines is one of the more heavily indebted companies. How concerned are you across the airlines about the levels of debt on this balance sheet?
Yep, that's a great question. And I don't mean to laugh about it because it's really serious and it's got everybody, up at night. But so think about it this way. Delta has pushed most of their maturities off until 2022. They did talk about having one due April of 2021 that they'll probably wind up refinancing. I mean, right now, they have access to capital. They have $15 billion in liquidity, assuming no increase in revenue from the $1.2 billion that they reported this morning on the airline side. They have enough money and cash to make it well over a year and a half. So, think about it that way. American, your specific question, they have their next maturity is not due till 2022, March of 2022. They paid down their term loan that they took back in March to get, the immediate liquidity, the credit line. Southwest also paid down their credit line. So I think all the airlines are being very mindful that they need to be sure they maintain access to liquidity, A, and B, American was the one that had no debt covenant issues. They always had a liquidity test. They had to have $2 billion of total liquidity. That includes cash and other unencumbered assets. Delta shifted to that. They got all their lenders to agree to no debt covenants, so that's not an issue for them, and United did the same. So your big three should be able to make it to 2021 when we see, when we're hopeful that by next year we get some improvement, that this virus is under control and it isn't running rampant, a year from now. That would be a disaster for on a lot of different levels if it was still the way it is today a year from now.
So, Helene, with regards to the cost picture, and when you take a look at fuel prices, I mean, a lot of traders right now who have been speculating on the potential rebound in airlines have been keeping an eye on what jet fuel has been doing. We've seen a spike up, of course, off those monster lows that we had. But I guess the question is, under normal circumstances, when you would see jet fuel prices fall as much as they did, that would generally be a boon for the airlines in terms of cost savings. Is there any sort of hope that the airlines were able to sort of lock in any of that, or was just the supply out there just so much that is not really going to factor into their cost structure in that near or medium term?
Yeah, most of the airlines stopped hedging because they did it wrong and they didn't benefit. So we don't see that much anymore. I think it would be good. So this is kind of perverse. It would be good if oil prices were up because demand was up. But of course, there's no demand right now. And the amount of flying the airlines are doing, just on a worldwide basis, not only in the US, is so much lower than it was a year ago that there's just no demand for jet fuel right now. And that's kept costs low, which has been a big benefit, right? I mean, we estimate that when you think about lower fuel costs and the fact that the federal government is paying wages, the break-even load factor for some of these airlines is probably somewhere around 25 to 30%. It's after October 1st when the airlines have to pay for their labor again, that the break-even load factor jumps up significantly because they're once again, paying their own payroll as opposed to, administering what is basically an employment program that the airlines are covering that's paid for by the government.
Wow. I mean, we've been talking about this probably the last couple of months. We've been talking about this last year too. You can go back to our archive and see that we've been talking about this since last year. The economy's not going to run just bounce back like people think. Well, just open up the businesses. Not going to happen, bro. Not going to happen. Your mic dropped out there, Nicole.
And people are just not talking about it.
Hey, your mic is dropping out.
Coronavirus here in this country.
Hey, Nicole, your mic is dropping out.
I'm sorry. Okay. Can you hear me better?
We can hear you now.
Okay, yeah, I'm just a little bit. Yeah, the terrible mishandling of this of this virus, and the horrible response is going to keep us in a negative position a bit longer. This thing has to be handled right. So this we're going to still have this around for a while because we're going to have more people getting sick and people not recovering at the levels that they're going to need to. And we just haven't done this thing right, and they don't understand they're prolonging this. So you're talking about getting the economy together? I heard one economist say things are probably not going to be right again till around 2024, 2025. Is that right? Something they're saying, wow, just based on what we're seeing now. So I can look at New York City. We got some friends who were down there right now. I was going to head down there tomorrow. I wasn't all that crazy about doing that, but I'm supposed to meet some friends down there tomorrow, so I said I would go. And there's going to be an outdoor cafe, and they're starting to open up the Empire State Building coming on this Monday, and they're going to have a lot of things inside the building shut down, but they're still slowly trying to open. But yeah, nobody's been fully tested, and I'll give Governor Cuomo, he's done a pretty good job as far as flattening the curve out again, but it's going to rise again, and we're going to see other things happen in other states as we're seeing. So if we don't get a handle on this virus as well and keep people from getting infected more and more, I see just more and more problems, just further slowing down the economy. So we really got to get on top of this. That's a big issue with this recovery as well, is making sure that people are recovered. And that's a big, the 800-pound gorilla in the room that we're not talking about the way we need to.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of these people in the manosphere were saying, man, this is all a pandemic, man. Hey, man, if you just open up more barbershops, man, if we just have more garage sales, this thing will bounce right back. Not gonna happen, bro.
No.
Not gonna happen, man.
Not at all.
Black people only had about 2 to 3 weeks of savings at 70% of the community. Okay, 2 to 3 weeks. By Mother's Day, would have tapped out. You're talking about an economy that may not bounce back until 2024. You do the math. You do the math, man.
Well, I mean, and when you listen to the lady, I guess it's Helene Becker.
Yeah.
She was having the discussion, and she was referring to how the big three, I believe it's Delta, American, and United. Those that constitute the big three airlines in the U.S. How they were increasing their liquidity to the tune of billions. Even though they still carry debt, they still had to have a certain amount liquid for their business model. And this is what people should have been doing at this. That's what I have been doing. Like, soon as this whole, epidemic and all this other stuff was going, like, anything I had planned was put on complete hold. Like, I've been putting in hours and hours at work, 7 days straight, 12-hour shifts, the 7-day, 16-hour shift. Like, I'm just killing it because my thing is that I have to be liquid too. Even though this is a good time to invest, you still need to have some liquid stuff on hand, especially if you have things that may need some type of cash influx for maintenance purposes. Like,
well, Triz,
yeah.
Triz, the key thing is that you have a job. All right, you have a job. you have a job that you can go to and put in hours. A lot of people are going to run into problems just having a job, family. That's a big part of this problem as well. And that's what a lot of people have to be prepared to do. And I don't care how much you can save. You can have a year's savings down, and that's cool. But what happens? A year goes by pretty fast. Goes by pretty quick in the clip. So if you got a year's savings and you say, well, I'm ahead of the game, you come up next year and all of a sudden you saw your bank account coming down under $5,000, and now you're sitting there saying, oh, fuck, we ain't gonna do that. I mean, that's what we're kind of looking at. And I don't see us, this game clearing out that easily. So, that's why we here over at the Brain Trust, we talk about certain kind of fields to get into, like healthcare and tech and so forth, where you're going to have a job, because a lot of other areas are going to get hit. You have a job, you can put in 16 hours a week. And so you can get that OT or whatever, you can get it. A lot of other people are not in that position, they're not going to have that. So that's a key that we're talking about as well, the job piece. So it's nice talking about liquidity. I'm down. I've got money saved, and I'm trying to grab other accounts, and we're trying to do certain kind of things, but not everybody's going to be in the position that some of us are in.
Well, okay. So my question then becomes this. Okay, so if you have to say for instance, you take the opportunity to become maybe you have to offload something. You have to maybe sell some stuff. Mm-hmm. There was a time in Houston I had all these cars. You know what I mean? And so you can sell your cars, sell furniture, whatever you got to do, and so that way you can have access to liquid cash. And then once you have some savings, right? Even if you say, for instance, people who lost their job, whatever, don't have employment, right? Even if you're able to work a job, maybe you make $30 an hour on your job, that can hold you over because you have savings. So all you have to do is basically maintain, and then little incidental stuff, like maybe something to get fixed, your car, your water heater goes out, you can tap into your savings for that. But you can cut your costs and then use the little money you make from the job. You take a little, a hit as far as your wage is concerned, but because you have money saved, you can weather that storm.
I'm looking at things very realistically, and I'm looking at our community very realistically. I've got some of my people who work with the security company, and I'm still trying to hit these cats off every other week with some money to keep them going. The guys hit me up constantly. Fam, we don't have a lot of people who have jobs where they can really maintain. After a couple of weeks, these guys are done. That's with white folks as well, but with the Black community, that is us in particular. We don't have it like that, man. As a community, we don't. Those of us who have money, we got plenty of people who are pulling on us for dollars. That's it. I'm hit up for money every day. Every day. Every day. I mean, I don't talk about it. That's just how it is. That's where we're at. Yeah. And we got a lot to concern ourselves with. Go ahead, Mike.
So, I was gonna say this real quick. So when you get hit up for money, are they asking for work, or are they just asking for money? Can I do this to, you need something done, or what, how are they asking you?
These are guys who work with me and Carl, listen, man, I need 300, I need 400 here. I need this, I need that. When we're going to open up, when are these other spots going to open up? I had Club Slate, big company. A lot of these guys were making $1,600 a week cash in their pockets. Club Slate is down. That's out. I had 75 guys on with that. Me and he said, I got 75 people, man. We were clocking. That's over. I caught our contract money. I'm still sitting there and I'm paying guys off on that. Cats are sitting around, man, no dough. These are brothers, guys who are working 2 jobs. All right. 2 jobs and shit. Guys try to make it. Got apartments, and they needed 2 jobs. They needed $1,500 here a week, to work at night. And then they needed to work their other job where they need that money just to stay where they are. And these guys they're coming up on their 3 months now, on the 3 months, as far as their rent, if you will, a jubilee, if you will, where these guys were not going to be responsible for paying some of those back rent bills. And boy, here it is. It's getting ready to come up. A lot of dudes are getting ready to get displaced. This is not funny. I know what's going on, especially up here. I know the deal. So, guys like yourself, it's great. Well, I can unload this and unload that. Man, a lot of us are just not there like that. A lot of us across the board, I'm talking about brothers in particular, hard-working, working dudes. All right. It is what it is. You know, so we're going to have some real issues, fam. Go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to go to MOT. What's going on, MOT?
What's going on, man?
I don't know what you've heard so far from the clip, but definitely 3 to 5 year recovery.
No, it's going to be longer than that.
Yeah.
The military think it's going to be longer than that, like 6 or 7 years tops.
Mm-hmm.
To be like before it was pre-COVID for like, I'm talking about like everything, sports, everything. But it's not coming back for a while. And right now I'm heading back out west. And every time I go out there, I go to one of these exits, I see a hell of a lot more containers out there and people living out of them, man. Out in the middle of nowhere, solar, and it's crazy. A lot of people have got thrown out of their places. There's a lot of these RVs out there, and people are not on vacation.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we talked about this some months ago. Tiny houses, RVs, that market is going to pick up.
Oh, no, it has.
Yeah.
It has exploded. It has exploded.
Yeah, people living out of, yeah. Go ahead.
No, it's going to explode even more once it starts getting cold. You know, because right now, you know, there's a lot you can do to that thing to make it livable for the summertime. But there ain't no way in the hell you're going to be in that type of spot in the wintertime.
No.
No way.
No.
So.
Yeah, I mean, look up who makes tents, man, and start investing into those, man. But go find a certified financial planner. Go to CFP.net. Look up one in your area. I'm just saying.
But you know, how does that bode for Americans at large when we look at historically, you know, a majority of Americans build wealth through home ownership or some type of, you know, property ownership. When you're talking about like these container homes and you know what they call tiny homes and things like that. So there's a guy that I know. He's an actual real estate developer, but he does like, you know, big commercial projects. Like he, you know, generally like 30 million, you know, 50 million type renovation projects and things like that. But he got his start, you know, with some of these smaller projects. And, you know, what he told me was that, you know, what, you know, these, you know, because these tiny homes have been going on for quite a while now. It's not a new concept. But what he said is that the problem with these tiny homes is that, you know, they're considered a mobile home. So it's actually a depreciating asset. The only thing that appreciates when you're talking about a tiny home is the land that it's sitting on. The actual mobile home itself actually depreciates. So the tiny home itself actually depreciates because it's not a structure that has a foundation. So it's almost it's like a kind of a gray area between owning a car and owning a apartment or something like that. But anyways, you know, now these people lose that opportunity to build equity that they can pass on to their lineage. And so then you start looking at that model, like, and I know we've talked about this before, like Europe, where you have a majority of people in Europe actually, you know, renting instead of owning. And, you know, and I looked at property in Europe, and what you find in Europe is that you have extremely low cap rates. And what that means is essentially is that the amount of money that you pay for the property versus the amount of money that you can generate on an annual basis in revenue, rental revenue. And so, like, for instance, if you have say, for instance, you have a $500,000 property, you know, somewhere, we'll just say in a major city in the US, and you may be able to generate annually, you may be able to get like, you know, $40,000 a year, you know, maybe $50,000 a year gross rental income. But like, say for somewhere in Germany, you can only get $24,000 in gross rental income. And so then it becomes, not only is the price itself unattainable for most people to get into that game, but the numbers just don't make sense, because once you buy it, you're paying out of the pocket at the end of the day, because your actual rental revenue doesn't cover the actual cost of owning that property. So then you have the you know, that cycle where people just never actually own property and never actually are able to pass on that wealth to their lineage.
But Triz, can you pass on super chats and cash apps to your siblings?
Well, I mean, if you have an OnlyFans account, you can give your child your password, and Maybe you could pass it on like that.
Mike, you silly. Oh boy. Nah, man, I think shit's getting ready to get real. It's just getting ready to get real, man.
Oh, it is. Oh, it is.
Yeah, it's getting ready to get real. I'm very realistic about this, and I can sit and say, oh, my family right now, we're here, me, my bro, and all of us, we're sitting here, big ass house, shit's butter laid. It's good for us, but what the fuck? That ain't the game for everybody else out here, man. This shit is not a game. So we're trying to help who we can, and I think things are getting ready to get tight. So
Nagone, can I just respond to somebody? I just glanced at the chat.
Go ahead, man.
And then we have Flashwave 2020. This guy's talking about wealth when this is a time about survival, which is very true. This is a time about survival, but unfortunately, this is a time when millionaires and billionaires are made.
Right now.
You have a few people who are taking full advantage of. Like I said, for those who ever listen when I said, keep your overhead low and your savings high. Those people who have money, and I'm not talking about a lot of money. I'm talking about people who maybe got 40, 50 grand cash that you can play with in other areas. You gonna bust one of them big baby making nuts out here. Okay, you can bust that because these opportunities are getting ready to open up. You will not believe some of the opportunities that are going to come up for relatively short money. But a lot of people haven't lived that, man. A lot of people haven't lived that. A lot of people who were making money a year ago or whatever, they were thinking this shit was going to go on forever, and they did not take that mindset of a rainy day. A lot of guys didn't, and now they're on their last legs. They're trying to work or they're trying to get this or trying to get that, and they got big overhead, big cars, and big places and stuff like that, and the money low, man. So I see what's going on, man. I'm exceedingly realistic about what's going on out here. I'm an older cat. I ain't no young boy. I'm one of these old niggas. You ain't gonna try to fuck up my money. You can help it right now after the shit I've been through. So I know how this game is played. So I ain't fucking around. But I know a lot of guys out here, man, who are in their 30s, early 40s, thought shit was gonna run forever, and it's not that way right now. Shit's getting ready to get tight. So I'm just saying, we're gonna have to think about looking at some things. And you're right, there's opportunities for businesses. We can get into more businesses and begin to start to pick up some of the slack and hire some of our own people because they're good workers. And you can definitely get a good workforce underneath you if you certainly have that, and work with some people and make some bread. That opportunity is there. But more of us are going to have to take that opportunity. But the reality is we don't have a lot of us who are really in a cash position with 100, 200, 300,000 cash, in the bank to really get live and play in a certain way. We just ain't there like that. That's most Americans, and that's for us in particular. So I'm just being very realistic about where I see this thing going first. And my views are a little bit dark. They were a little bit dark, and I tend to be a rather optimistic person. But I'm looking at certain things in a very real way. Go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, MOT has a lot of trailers, man, and he might have to start section them out and put some bunk beds in on them.
Bunk beds.
Bunk beds. They can bunk beds. Shit, bunk beds.
That's a lot of real estate, man. A 51-foot trailer, man. That's a lot, man.
I've seen people do it. I've seen some of those out there too.
Yes,
So they put little stairs up there. They section them off into 3. You got doors up front, doors in the back, doors on the side. Yeah, I've seen it.
It's about that time, dog.
Yeah.
Let me jump to this next item on the docket. This is from Bloomberg again. Dividends show no future growth and a long road to economic recovery. We've been talking about this.
Future dividend payments by S&P 500 index corporations have been on the move, along with equity prices, with some key differences. Equity prices have been strongly supported by the Federal Reserve's massive fixed income asset purchases, which have resulted in much lower U.S. long-term bond yields, lowering the bar for equities and giving equities a V-shaped recovery, even as the economy faces many headwinds. Dividend expectations from the futures market suggest a partial recovery in dividends is anticipated over the next few years. Yet as the decade progresses, dividend expectations are showing no further growth. That is, dividend expectations appear to be responding more to the economic realities because they are less affected by Federal Reserve activity. Dividend expectations are telling us that the economic rebuilding path will be difficult. Monitoring dividend expectations can help us understand the disconnect between equity prices and prospects for the real economy.
Dividend is not showing no real growth. I mean, how much more information do we have to put out there that says that this is not going to be a quick turnaround? I don't care who wins in November. This ain't turning around because who got into the White House, man.
No.
And having more traditional families isn't going to help shit. Hoodservatives, the hoodservatives will sit up here and tell you, if we just had more traditional families, we'd be just fine. If we just pulled our pants up, we'd be just fine. I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so, man. Pulling up your pants isn't going to help you survive this economic fallout, man. Buttoning your or putting on a clip-on tie is not going to help. It's not going to help, man. Advanced engineering cannabis. And so, we keep showing all this evidence, and yet people are still in doubt that, this will turn around, probably give it about 6 months. Bullshit. All the numbers are pointing the opposite way. So, airlines, they're going to suffer.
So, Mike.
Yes, sir.
Things are going to be rough.
What do you suggest? What do you suggest? Because I'm going by what Robert F. Smith basically said, that intellectual property will be the next big wave in terms of helping further the economic crisis. So do you suggest people invest in those kind of stuff? So what do you suggest people basically invest in to actually get through this economic downfall?
It's not so much about investing, but innovate or die. That's what it's going to come down to. And whoever innovates the most is going to be the ones to survive. The problem is, in our community, we don't believe in innovation. We believe in game. We believe in game.
Did you just say game?
Game. G-A-M-E.
Game. So guys are in the game and talking about game and shit.
Yeah.
Not gonna happen.
Yeah, if you just had a nice mouthpiece, a clean mouthpiece, if you could just use game, you could just alpha your way through this, you'll be just fine.
Yeah.
It's crock of shit. It's crock of shit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If you just pulled your pants up.
Yeah, I mean, like everybody want to go to FANLU college, man.
Shit. Damn. Oh, MOT. Woo. Damn. Yeah. So we're gonna have to work hard, but I do think we need to be thinking more in the cooperative business arena. That's something that I've been talking with one of my partners about right now, and I think there's some things that we can do to kind of help ourselves a bit more and whatever. And we do have cadre of brothers out here that are ready to work. So I think like Mike said, if we start to innovate and start to put some stuff together, we could actually come out of this halfway decent. But it's going to take work, and it's going to take a little vision as well. So that's how I'm looking at it. For you guys who are in the healthcare industry and people who are in the IT game and are doing well, you guys have made all the right moves as far as your business, your career plans. And there are going to be some other areas that are going to certainly open up, but those are the hot ones. And I would suggest anybody right now who is in school and studying and doing whatever, this is these are the places to go. You know, you hear Super Triz, I'm putting in all the hours I can. He getting hours on hours. You know, he went and got his nursing degree, and he's doing mad hours, bro. You know, I got a couple of cats who I put through CDL school, and here they are right now. You know, these guys are not PhDs or anything, but they're driving trucks and they're making 50, 60 grand a year coming around on that. You know, I've got 1 or 2 jobs that I'm looking to get 2 guys into right now. That's paying $26 an hour for some CDL drivers. So, you know, so I'm looking for a couple of cats who've got their licenses. I'm trying to get some other guys into school right now to kind of get things going. But that's another place where there's money. You know, we got to be looking at spots that are going to really, really work our bottom line the best. And we're going to have to, you know, and if you think you're just going to mouthpiece your way into it like Mike and MOT and these guys are saying, not going to happen. You're going to have to put some work in and have some vision. We're trying to provide that because we kind of have a good idea as to where this stuff is at. But that's where we're going to have to be right now. That's where we're going to have to be. And, you know, I want brothers to listen up. This channel holds that level of value. It's at least giving you an idea as to where things are at. You know, hey, Super Triz is talking about, I'm putting in all the hours I can. What does that tell you? That's where the work is. You know, and it's going to take some work to get there. So, you know, get in his position. So I just want to you know, be very real about what we're dealing with. Go ahead, guys.
Yeah, I want to go to Renaissance. He has his hand raised.
Hey, what's up, panel?
What's up, bro?
What's going on, RM? What's up, baby?
Nothing much. Now, I was going to quickly add, when you were talking about just transitioning and getting prepared right now, to me, it's kind of right now is kind of one of the easier times to do it in the sense of, you know, if you've lost your job, you got some unemployment coverage coming in. If you're like me, working from home, you know, you got some free time, not having to commute to work. So it's kind of just a perfect time to, you know, especially with the internet, utilize all the tools out there to improve your skills. I mean, I just saw an article the other day where Google was saying that they were pretty much had like a 6-month training program where they were going to pretty much let you go through this program, I believe in like data analytics, project management, and they pretty much would view it as like a 4-year college degree. So
yeah, they basically are going to sponsor, I think, $100,000 worth of scholarships for data analytics, project management, and one other one.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's if you can, you know, they'll pay for it if you can't afford it. You know, if you got the unemployment or something coming in, you can find a way to, you know, make that work, and then boom, you've got an opportunity to go work at one of the biggest companies in the world. So
and they're working with other companies too. Sprint, they're basically trying to make sure that Google cert is basically applicable to not only Google, but with Sprint. They're trying to basically bring other companies along to say, hey, this cert is valuable with Google, also valuable with Sprint and other ones. So you're not only limited to Google at that point.
Yeah. So I was just going to add, so for me, you know, I wish I had something like that opportunity for me when I was 18. You know, that would be something I'd go do then, you know, get a job and then go on the side, you know, part-time, get my degree versus going full time. So it's just it's a lot of things out here, a lot of options out here that you can do if you're paying attention and you're serious about it.
That's absolutely correct. If you focus, this is the time to get ahead. We've been talking about this here on this channel for a bit. This is the time to really start to focus and get live. For those who are not and walking around talking a lot of game shit and whatever, they're full of shit. They're bullshitters. Can't fuck with them. I'm talking about guys who are very serious. You got this one young brother I've mentoring, and bam, he's gotten one of his licenses already. Excuse me, not licenses, but one of his certifications in a tech programming area. And he's driving his truck, and he's getting his business together. This guy's cranking on a couple of key cylinders. He's not running around talking about game, you know, running behind absolutely sucker-laid hoes. He ain't fucking with that. He's focused. These are the guys that are going to who are going to get ahead, and that's what we have to really focus on right now. Guys who are very serious about this, and we got brothers out here who are serious. So you know, like I said, you know, I'm trying to get as many guys as I can right now into these CDL programs and get more guys into tech, more guys in healthcare if we can. Somebody out in the chat said HVAC. Damn right, HVAC is huge right now. Huge. It's been big and it's going to get bigger. So so for those who are looking at HVAC. Now, are they just going to give this to you? You're going to sit back around and crispy mouthpiece your way through an HVAC? No, you have to put in the work. So we're talking about guys who are prepared to put in work, and brothers can put in the work. We see a lot who are doing it. So I'm not down on brothers at all. I'm not one of these guys out here thinking you can't do it. One of my best guys I got out there right now came out of jail, stole some equipment off of a construction site, being an asshole, selling shit, thinking he was Butterley, making ridiculously short money, thinking he live like that. He was a straight sucker. But once he got out, okay, that shit tore his ass out the frames every which way but loose. Then when he got out of it, motherfucker, and then decided he was gonna get serious, came to me. I got him highly Butterley, got his license, he got his CDL. He's out here, man, on the road, making money, talking about getting his kid back. I'm like, hey, listen, I know you get your kid back right now. Only thing you really want is half your, you want, basically right now you want joint custody of which he's got. Get joint custody because you put a lot of time on the road. Get that under your belt. Get your business right. Get your money right, and then you can come after the sucker later. Oh, she fucking up. Don't worry. You got it. Your boys with you on a regular system basis. Handle your business right now. Handle your business. So I'm just talking through this. And these guys are thinking right, man. That's why I got faith in these brothers. Oh, fuck these niggas, they ain't gonna make it. Yeah, well, they deserve to get fucked up. Nah, I ain't fuck with y'all. I ain't fuck with y'all like that. Okay, I fuck with the real cats who are really pushing it. So that's what we talking about. And you cats out here, I'm gonna say this one more again. I don't want to put I don't want to keep harping on Triz, but Triz talking about I'm working all the OT I can get. That's where you gotta be.
Exactly. And I was going to say too, you got to be aware, and I'll let Mike continue. You just got to be aware that, that this window is kind of closing on, like we say, these minimum wage jobs and things you can get by on. You can still get by with, messing up and then, working the minimum wage job and doing this on the side and working your way up, sort of starting behind the 8 ball, but it's going to get harder and harder to do in the future.
It certainly is. And as they automate more, this stuff is going to start going down. Going to be less jobs like this. Guys have to be aware. The stuff we talked about, we ain't talking out the sides of our asses over here. I know a lot of guys want to come to the brain trust. We ain't nobody listening to you. Fuck y'all. We gonna come in here and do a whole lot of fucking whack ass talking. We ain't been wrong. And the name of the game is that's why we got to stay on top of this, because these brothers who are on this panel and talking this stuff understand what time it is. I hope guys are listening, and there are plenty of those who are. Let's keep it real.
Other nationalities are closing ranks, man.
Yeah.
Closing ranks, and all these jobs that usually go out are now being in. I'm telling you, there's gonna be a lot of people left out.
All right. Let me jump to this article from CNBC.com. Minimum wage workers cannot afford rent in any U.S. state. Let me expand this out. Full-time minimum wage workers cannot afford a 2-bedroom rental anywhere in the U.S. and cannot afford a 1-bedroom rental in 95% of U.S. counties, according to the National Low-Income Housing Coalition's annual out-of-reach report. In fact, the average minimum wage worker in the U.S. would need to work almost 97 hours per week to afford a fair market rate 2-bedroom and 79 hours per week to afford a 1-bedroom. NLIHC calculates that's well over 2 full-time jobs just to be able to afford a 2-bedroom rental. Okay, here's a map of all the 2-bedroom rental housing wages. So you need at least, in New York, you need to make at least $32.53 in order to afford a 2-bedroom. Okay,
and that's probably in the hood too.
Yeah. The hood conservatives.
So it's kind of like same if you're in DC as well.
Yeah, it says right here, DC is $32.83. In Colorado, it's $26.45. Okay.
And that's 5 points off Martin Luther King. So. Yeah. The 2-bedroom in Alaska is not that much different than Colorado. Yeah.
I mean, imagine that.
Montbello, that type of shit.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, though, in Oklahoma, it's actually a lot cheaper to live than Colorado.
It's just all of the industry. Colorado is one of the best states for employment, and people from California, New York, lots of engineering and other technologies are moving out there, and it's driving everything up. A lot of people from Texas too.
Yep.
Pretty clean place, man. You know, they don't play. Everything's nice. Great.
Yeah, Massachusetts is $35.52. So, I mean, you really a lot of that is attributed to the colleges, man, because the dormitories are over flooded, and so these students end up going into these 2 bedrooms, to pair off, four people to a 2 bedroom. Yeah, man. I mean, look at all these, these wages, man. It's just crazy. I think Massachusetts is probably the most expensive in the country, in comparison to California. Let me finish reading the rest of this. The report released Tuesday defines affordable as spending no more than 30% of your monthly income or rent, in line with what most budgeting experts recommended. Nationally, the NLIHC puts the housing wage for 2020, or what a full-time worker must make in order to afford a fair market rental without spending more than 30% of his or her income, at $23.96 per hour for a 2-bedroom rental, and $19.56 per hour for a 1-bedroom. That means even the average hourly worker who earns $18.22 per hour cannot afford rent, the report says. Many workers deemed essential during the coronavirus pandemic earn even less. Grocery store cashiers earn a median wage of $11.61 per hour, while building cleaning workers in home health and personal care aides earn $12.94 an hour. There was a housing affordability crisis even before the pandemic hit, and tens of millions lost their jobs. Last year, the NLIHC's report also found that a 2-bedroom was not affordable anywhere in the country, putting the 2019 housing wage at $22.96 for a 2-bedroom rental, and $18.65 for a 1-bedroom. But the findings are especially relevant now. Coronavirus-related job losses hit the hospitality and service industries particularly hard, and renters make up a disproportionate share of those workforces, according to the Urban Institute. Additionally, it is not likely that the U.S. will make a V-shaped recovery economists are hoping for, as states are reclosing large parts of their economies as virus cases spike across the country. We just got finished talking about that earlier. Okay? No V-shaped recoveries. You might be throwing up the W or something, but not the V-shape. With all that as the backdrop, housing experts forecast a coming housing apocalypse at the end of July. Yep. Eviction bans put in place at the start of the pandemic are lifting just as enhanced unemployment benefits expire. That could lead millions of households to face eviction and potentially homelessness as they choose between covering rent and basics like food and medicine. An estimated 32% of households, almost 1/3, missed their housing payment at the beginning of this month. Pre-existing structural injustices like limited housing options mean people of color already made up a disproportionate share of people experiencing homelessness in the US before the pandemic. The report says Black Americans comprised 40% of people experiencing homelessness in 2019, even though they are just 13% of the population, according to the report. Hispanic and Latino people were 18% of the population and 22% of the of those experiencing homelessness. 40%, man.
I was going to add too, Mike, that a third of people missing their mortgage. You got to think Black people have probably never really recovered from the first crisis in 2008. So we lost a bunch of our homes then. So you've got a lot of people who are white and probably Asian who as well are getting hit hard by this as well in that 1/3.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be a whole lot of people. I'm telling you, once August 1st hits and people start losing their internet connections in their homes and stuff, because the internet's going to go first. Okay, Comcast needs their money, Verizon needs their money. If you don't pay up by the first, they're going to cut that service. A lot of these guys who were getting super chats for game, they won't be getting that anymore. There'll be no more cash apps dinging, dinging, dinging in the background. Okay.
Hey, Mike, when are they cutting the internet? When is it supposed to go?
There was a moratorium on suspending internet because it's considered a utility, and so if they're going to evict people out of their houses, they're also going to, suspend internet service too. No sense in them paying for that.
I didn't even know there was a moratorium on the internet. But how long is that? How long is that going on to?
That started at the beginning of the pandemic. Can't cut the internet on people, right? So the government, when school was in session, they bought all these laptops, but people did not have proper internet connection. So the government went out and paid for it. And so how long are they going to pay for it if people are being evicted out?
Verizon stopped their program like June 31st. So
yep, they were giving away free data, I believe. I got a text every month talking about you got like additional data for free.
Yep. It's game over. It's game over. The writing's on the wall. So
they cut internet services for people now?
Well, if you're being evicted, your internet service is probably going to be cut too.
Yep.
But I'm telling you, this shit is not a game. Motherfuckers, this is not a game out here. I didn't even know about the internet thing. I wasn't up on that, but I know they had a moratorium on rents, and and my cousin, he's got 150 units, and he says he says that maybe about 65% of the people are paid up, but he's got a pretty heavy percentage that are not, and he's running around doing what he can do, and it ain't and he's I don't know. Shit's getting ready to get real. She's getting ready to get real for some people.
Unless you can, unless you bank on. No, I was just going to say quickly, unless you bank on this new another stimulus, which they're talking about, and that giving some more relief.
Yeah. I mean,
not going to relieve much.
You're already 3 months behind on rent.
Yeah, I'm saying this shit's getting ready to come flying back on people. I said, well, the housing unit's good. Housing may be all right for now, but in a while, because in New York City, they still have the moratorium. I don't know when that's going to be lifted.
I know you guys are history buffs, and what you're seeing now. But I want to say what you're seeing now goes back. The turmoil you're seeing in the whole world now. You have to go back to when America was founded. People came from Europe because people were starving, basically starving. There was land, but it was owned by the king. All the wealthy people owned all the land. People came here, and the Constitution was written that included the ownership of property.
Mm-hmm.
What's happening now is that this economy is going. We are at that phase. 1600, 1500. Well, it started 1100 after the so-called, well, anyway, 1100s, I would say, all the way through the 1600s, when the wars begin to kind of settle down, and the Europeans started with this the criminal Columbus, started coming west. This is what we are seeing here in America. This economy is being I don't know if you guys remember the 80s when you had companies like GE. GE started buying up everything, just like Amazon is doing today.
Yeah.
You got companies like Tesla. Tesla is going into everything had to do with space and electric power grids, space travel. They're marking out their economies. The companies are being shaken out. If I saw an article, they said JetBlue is joining American.
I heard about that.
So a lot of things are happening underneath the radar. American is laying off tons of people that you're not seeing in the news. United doing the same thing, and come the end of this month, when this money that they gave to the airline's going to stay in business because the airlines are part of the U.S. government military system. The government don't maintain troop transports anymore, so they use the civilian aircraft, which the government really owns the airplane anyway. So, but they use civilian aircraft to transport the troops around. Whenever the government calls, say, "Hey, we need your airplane," you deliver it. You cancel flights. I've seen us cancel flights for months and just move the people to other airlines so that we can give the government their airplane. So the airline is going to survive. There are only going to be probably about 3 of them. And most of the rich people are going to be traveling by these, by the hour, something like what's the name? The guy from Omaha. He had.
You're talking about like a charter plane?
Yeah, charter. You're going to pay $1,400 an hour, and they'll fly you wherever you go.
You mean flying private? Flying private.
Yeah, the price is $1,400 at the moment, but you pay by the hour. They'll fly you wherever you want to go on the planet. But this thing is being shaken out. The poor people. You gotta see like Dollar General and Dollar Tree and all of those. That's where the poor people are gonna shop.
In Dollar Will.
Dollar Will too. But you see Walmart is taking out its claim. You see Walmart, Target, and the online stores, they're gonna get shaken out too. From the time you see Amazon kicked everybody off their platform and said, "Hey, you gotta have your own inventory," there was trouble in the market. And you see this thing continue now. This COVID thing is really shaking up everything from top to bottom. That wasn't the problem before. The economy was the problem before, and the change going from everything mechanical to everything, digital. But this COVID thing just speed up everything, and it's knocking people out. Come winter, I'm going to be sorry for a lot of people, especially across the only people who are going to be surviving in South Texas, California, and South Florida. The rest of the people, when winter comes, they're going, unless the government going to bail them out.
They're going to have to because of COVID, because you got all these homeless people and you still don't have a vaccine. That's just going to exacerbate.
You're not going to get a vaccine, bro. You're not going to get a vaccine.
And we fucked up.
Vaccine can't. I already saw a thing saying that the vaccine is not going to. It's not going to work because that after 60 days they losing their immunity, and if you give a vaccine, you're losing your immunity after 60 days having a vaccine. What is the vaccine? You know what I'm saying?
ADE, we didn't even we haven't handled. We squandered our 90-day period to get tested and trace people and really get a handle on this thing. We blew that, man. That was blown. And we're walking around talking about opening up, everybody walking around sick as fuck. That's why Europe and these other countries saying, if you're American, stay the fuck out of here. You get your disease, red, white, and blue ass out of this motherfucker.
Didn't that happen during the plague? Didn't that happen during the plague? You're a history man. Didn't that happen during the plague?
Yeah, man. During the plague, we didn't have as much airline travel back in 1918. You just had
they still shut you down. I mean,
you didn't have any planes really going around then. You didn't have any planes.
If they catch you walking around, guess what? What did they do? If they catch you outside walking around?
Well, they shut you down. But remember, people were saying, "No, fuck that, man. We're not going to do it." They were having parades for soldiers in by 42nd Street. Okay, where people were piled up, and then you had a secondary wave that was even worse, where people were bleeding out of their eyes and bleeding out of their ears by the end of the day, and were dead by morning. So you had that going on back then. They were fucking up the same way until people started dying. Remember, close to 50 million people. They say 50 between 50 and 100 million, but at least 50 million people died. 50 million worldwide.
No, you hit the nail on the head, Nagone. Trump messed this thing up so bad, and it's costing the economy so much money.
Fucked it up, man.
You got Kemp down there in Georgia literally suing the mayor of Atlanta for a mask mandate. So people still on this crap.
I mean, this shit is crazy what we're dealing with. And they're going to prolong this thing to even fuck the economy up even worse. These people don't understand this is dollars and cents you're fucking with. What they're trying to talk about making, they fucking it up by not doing this thing right. This is a country that has no I've ever seen. I've never seen anything as incompetent as this. I mean, this. I can't give any of this a passing grade. This has been a failure from top to bottom. It's been a great big giant red letter, one of those big fucking old English F's up in there. One of them big bad curved up F's, man, that they got over there, man, from old English writing, where you spelled old OLDE and shit. I mean, this shit's fucked up.
They at least got it right up in your area, though. Nationally, they at least got it right up in your neck of the woods in the Northeast. Nationally, it's a disaster, though.
Well, we got hit the hardest because we had all these areas of entrance and egress. We had all of these areas, you have major airports and all the major trains and everything. Everything came here. So, you got a few Chinese, stick people, and next thing you know, this thing was all over. But we handled it halfway decently. But the rest of the country's not, and I still think the governor's being pushed to open up even part of the Empire State Building. Move, man.
Yeah.
But look, the Northeast haven't opened up yet, so you really can't say what's going to happen. And if they open up during the wintertime, guess what's going to happen to them?
Hey, listen, I would love for Club Slate to be open right now. I would love for most of these Foot Lockers to be open right now. I would love that right now. It's money, and it's considerable dollars. But I don't mind taking a haircut here, man. I'm sorry, because I don't want people dying up in this motherfucker over some.
Man, this is coming from a guy who has an afro right now. He doesn't mind taking a haircut.
Ooh, I got an afro. Ooh, I got that Michael Jackson joint right now. Well, that shit bang. But anyway.
Let me go to
you know what I think needs to be looked at, though? We really need to evaluate, and I don't know if this is something that's already been done. Like Nagone mentioned, the previous pandemic, which claimed the lives of approximately 50 million people worldwide or more, really needs to be done is divide the social economic strata. And look at their wealth growth year over year following actually the years preceding the actual pandemic, the previous pandemic, then the years after, and then look at the trajectory of wealth growth. And you'll find that those at the very top, their wealth growth trajectory actually increased. Whereas the other people, their wealth growth trajectory for themselves and their lineage, decreased even more. And so fast forward to now, that old saying, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And we have to look at what, trajectory, because, somebody in the chat, David Monroe said, oh my God, these article titles are so loaded with BS. Minimum wages aren't intended to pay that kind of money anyway. But I know for a fact from conversations I have with my own father, who's from, a previous generation, there was a time when you could walk into a factory without even graduating from high school. You don't even have to have a high school diploma. You could walk into a factory and they would ask you when you're ready to work. You could say, I'm ready to work right now. They will put you to work that same day. And you have no skills whatsoever. And at the end of that day, you collect a paycheck. Yep. And with the money you collect from that job from which you had no skills, you could be the head of a household, pay your rent. You could actually ponder home ownership with the money you made from a job that you just walked into off of the street. And that was something that really took place. And so now the trajectory is at this point, even for people who have college degrees, they may not even be able to head a household or pay rent, let alone head a household. And so now, looking at the trajectory, what will it be in the future? What will be the burden of performance to actually, generate wealth, have ownership of property, something that you could pass on? What will be that burden? What will be that entry cost
in the future?
Man, I remember when I was at a system that you were in college.
During the time that you're talking about, the U.S. was on the rise as an economy.
Yep.
Now the U.S. is in decline as an economy. we are not going to recover, period. What people are going to call a recovery is the stock market getting higher, but we are not going to recover. There are businesses that are going to survive. You know, the digital universe is going to survive. It's going to survive, no doubt about it. But
he's right.
This economy is not going to be revived. It is
not in the form that it was previously.
Nagon, it is not. We're not talking about in the form that it was previously. It is not going to come back. If you watch from about around the Korean War, when the U.S. peaked.
Listen, you're not going to hear me. You're not going to hear me argue with you.
Declining in the 80s, you had people who were lost a lot of money in the housing market. 20 years later, the same thing repeated itself, and more people lost.
Well.
20 years later, the same thing repeated itself, and more people lost. In 2008, we had so many people losing all their savings in the housing market, and now we're coming up on another one that's going to devastate the. It's getting worse and worse with each time we go into a depression, and nobody wants to say this is depression. And
it's a trend.
Who is recovering are the wealthy people, like Super said. The people who are at the top, they have all the laws made to protect them, and if they lose, the government pays them. So the rest of the economy is not going to recover. It's only those people who are going to hold their own. Their dollar, our dollar is going to drop 50%, and their dollar is going to go up 200%.
I would like to see
what they have.
Well, I'm sorry. Okay. I was just going to say, I remember, there was a time in the 80s when we were putting a lot of buildings up and everything else like that, where we had a lot of building going on, even construction, because I got hooked up by old man Persico, the old mobsters, if you will, and I'd gotten into the union that way, and I was in the Glazers Union. I remember just as a junior in college summer job, I could just literally walk up to the union hall and go out to a spot, get hired on, and I remember me and my brother, we were like the homeless. Here we are, 19, 20-year-old kids working around the clock, making a union wage. And I think I was making about three G's a week as a kid, running around and sleeping on the benches and waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning, jumping right back on the scaffold and, bang zoom, and then coming home for a little while, go back to the city. We'd have the night work, and then boom, we'd get up again, man, sleep over. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, it was work all over the place. We're not going to see that now. So what you're talking about as far as, the type of economy we had and where things are now, I mean, our economy actually has grown 2 to 3 times since that time, though all the money has been concentrated in a very small number of people's pockets. And that work that was out there before, man, it's not there. It's not there. So
but two things cause that work to be gone.
I was just going to say this. As far as what you're talking about, the economy coming back to where it was, like it was. No, we're not going to see that. We're not going to see that right now. No, ain't no way. We could potentially if there was some giant changes.
It's not going to happen.
Part of the problem.
But we're not going to see those changes.
Part of the problem started in the 80s that you had in the 80s. You had the Japanese came in and bought up a lot. Japanese, Taiwanese, their economies are rising, so they start buying up a lot of housing, not housing, but the building. When the U.S. shredded their economy and the Asian economy, those houses came back on the market dirt cheap, and you get investors from Europe and Middle East and all that come in and snapped up the economy, those investments. That's what normally happens. But when you see the government behind the push to get businesses to go to China, and that's what started happening early this after Nixon went there, and
so it started around 79.
It picked up speed in the 80s,
around
79, and in the 90s. I mean, after Reagan just knocked out the first union. Then unions came on a threat, and the paycheck began to come on a threat. I remember when I first started working at Airline, I was making $24 an hour. my paycheck went up to $47 an hour, and then we declared bankruptcy, and guess I think I was making about $30 an hour. And it took till 2001 before I got back to that $47 that I was making.
No, I was
So
going to say the
unions got
U.S.
taken out. The unions got taken out, and my $47 of 2001 wasn't even was valued probably about half of what my $47 in
But all of that
1986 was worth.
all of that was based upon the policies of the United States government. That's what it all goes back to. Okay, and that's why we're not going to see those those jobs that come back even from Corona. Jobs are not coming back. They were never intended to come back. They didn't want them in the first place. They just didn't, and that's all because of the policies of the United States government going all the way back to the early 80s. Hell, I'll say into the late 70s.
That was the
These
purpose.
policies started, and ever since then, there's been a corrosion of the United States, while they were still able to boast a growing dollar economy. But that dollar really, that was more of an illusion. It's always been an illusion in terms of a growing economy. Yeah, it's because the people at the top are getting richer, but the middle class has steadily shrank, and the lower class has steadily grown, and they played with unemployment numbers in order to hide it.
The thing is, that's what third wave industrialization was about. Information technology and automation. Okay, that this was bound to happen.
The reason why I got into IT. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but that was the reason why I got into IT and stayed there.
Yep. Automation was a part of the process of third wave industrialization. So now we're in fourth wave industrialization, and we're just talking about cyber connected systems. Okay.
I was going to add.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to quickly add, going back to what Dee was saying, as far as the recessions go, he is right. The recessions going back to roughly the 60s and 70s they've been deeper, as in people have lost more jobs and they've lasted longer. So if that pattern continues, you're right. This one is not going to be a V-shaped recovery. So,
nah, man, throwing up the peace sign.
There's not going to be recovery period. The average guy who had, for instance, like McDonald's. Let's go with McDonald's, the poorest of the poor.
No, the recessions we started seeing in the 80s, the 60s, the 70s, when we had our best time. The recessions we started seeing, coming back in the late 80s and into the 90s.
And they're going. Let him finish.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I just want to hit the recession time. Okay, go ahead.
You're going. Say you got a guy working at McDonald's. He's making $10 an hour. His job is gone, right? So you got a guy who's working for Airline that he's making $40, $50 an hour. His job is on the line. You know what I'm saying? Those jobs are not coming back. There's only so many. If we got 40 million people that has been out of work, they tell you that a lot of these people are being hired back, but they're not telling you that some of the people are going back to work. But say, for instance, the American laid off 20,000 people. They're not counting that. They're just counting the people who are going back to work. So,
hey, DE, what were you doing in that job that was paying you $40, $50 an hour at the American?
I was my job was I used to work as what they used to call R&E, was all electronic navigation systems and all that on aircraft.
Okay.
At the time when I came in at United Airlines, there were about 20 of us, black guys. There were about 500 of us techs all together, either.
Just basically aircraft maintenance.
But me, I was on the aircraft. At that time, you had to be licensed for everything. And
good, because I know
that's the job that I chose.
Okay, no, the only reason I ask, I know one guy was talking about when he used to work at Delta in Atlanta, you had bag handlers who were making $20, $25 an hour back in the 90s and 80s.
Oh, yeah. When I came to work, United, that was one of the problems United was fighting the unions over. And they couldn't get rid of the union that represented these guys because they represented us. You understand? And every time that the United States, we want to lower these guys' pay, the union will say, you know, we are going on strike. And the mechanics have to go on strike too. And the United States, well, you know what? We can't let our airplanes sit on the ground because the mechanic union is going on strike. So it's only after United declared bankruptcy that they got rid of those guys.
All right. I need to get to the next.
When they went out, they were making the same thing as I was making. Some of those guys were making the same pay I was making.
All right, I need to get to this next item on the docket. This is from NBC DFW. Job hunting during pandemic makes first impressions harder to come by. I'll fly right through this. As so many continue to look for work and job numbers linger at historic levels, finding a job during a pandemic has presented another set of challenges to overcome. Employers are forced to rethink the entire hiring process to prevent the spread of the virus, and that can make the first impression even harder than ever. Across the country, where we are even learning of curbside job fairs. Interesting. That's the awkwardness. It's different. We're used to reading people in person and shaking their hand, and we can't do any of that now, said Brown Allen, hire expert and president of high-profile staffing, who is preparing for her clients for this new normal. Gone are the days that are firm handshake or showing off a warm smile. Now, facial expressions are covered by a mask or done virtually. As job seekers, we truly had to alter or change our process, she said. Show emotion through your eyes and through your body language, because that's the way that employer will get to know you. Her client, sorry, I'm not going to read this thing because I just want to put some emphasis behind this, because the idea, because I heard this in the manosphere not too long ago. You know, someone said, why don't you go out there and just go get a job? Why do you need UBI? Well, kind of hard to go get a job right now during the pandemic. 45+ million people file for unemployment. Not that easy, bro. And so the idea that you're gonna, especially for a black man with a mask on, you take a person who's doing the interview who's already has an unconscious bias, against black people, and then you take the fact that the fear of a black person and a black man in a mask also enhances this sort of bias. You got a recipe for a disaster when it comes to racism during the job hiring process. So I don't know. I'm looking at this and I'm saying this is not going to be an easy recovery for black people in particular. We're already looking at the rents. Black people, more likely to be evicted. 40%. In some places, you're talking over 1/3 of the evictions and the job losses, right? Black people are more likely to lose their jobs because of the pandemic in some of these areas, because of automation now. This is a variety of reasons as to how this is going to impact people. So
they're going to need nothing short of a Marshall Plan to get this thing fixed.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are, and this UBI and all this kind of stuff is going to come online, like Yang was saying, who was running earlier this year. He saw it coming, and it's moving down a lot quicker. So that's going to come down the pike. We're going to have a fundamental kind of social kind of equity shake up in or restructuring in how we're going to economically move forward in this country, and we're going to have to deal with that. That's why when I started hearing some Republicans in The Guardian earlier this year saying we're going to have to we're delusional. We're going to have to rethink a lot of stuff we were talking about. We're going to have to rethink some of this, and it wasn't possible.
There ain't going to be these people going around saying talk about socialism and all that.
No. They that's what they were talking about. They were like, we're going to have to rethink some of this, because you have some people who are in the Republican Party as well, and the Democrat, who are looking at this thing very realistically. They're looking at their states. They're looking at what is actually really going on the ground, of which they know. And they understand. They understand what they're facing.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we have a new crew of guys in here trying to fight a culture war with very little information as to how economies really work, and they're gonna learn some lessons here as well. I'm very realistic about what's going on out here. Some of us here are very realistic as well, and this is a different game. We're at a different crossroads in this country, and like DE was saying, we ain't coming back like it was. You ain't see that again.
Well, what's interesting is that when we have these discussions about unemployment rates and those that file for employment, what we don't actually consider is that when these statistics, these numbers are posted about unemployment rates, at a certain point, somebody who has ceased even job seeking are not counted in that employment number.
Yeah.
So we have a lot more people unemployed than you think. And when we think about the sustainability of some of the programs that rely on taxes being paid, some of these cities are really in big, particularly California. California has a lot of a lot of these pension plans, that rely on people paying into, if say for instance you own a property, right, and you rely on rental income, right, and you already have exorbitantly high property taxes in California. So now you have somebody who isn't bringing in that revenue because their occupancy rates, maybe the occupancy rates are up, but the actual money that they bring in is down. And so how are they supposed to pay this money? Mm-hmm. And so now you have people who are not paying, the city is not getting the money it needs to sustain the programs. And then the problem is that you have, people that are elected, into public office, mayors of cities and whatnot, city councilmen, they're basically at arms with people who had these unions, because people that had the unions are contributing to their campaign funds. And so once they get in the office, now they have to repay the debt, that got them into office. And if they don't, there's clauses in a lot of these city council positions where you could be ousted if you dissent from the actual consensus among the rest of the people that are already there. So it's like people basically just kick the can down the road, but at some point you're gonna run out of road.
And at some point
you got to figure out how you're gonna pay for all this stuff that you promised.
And that's why I said that they've played with the numbers of the unemployment number. Look, I don't think this nation has ever truly been at what 11 or 4 or 5% unemployment.
Yeah,
I don't ever think that, but they continuously play with them to tell people it's just 4% because they're not really counting everybody. They've never counted everyone. Mm-hmm. I would probably say a good 50% of the nation is actually unemployed for one reason or another. Mm-hmm. And you can't sustain a nation like that, with free market capitalism and all that. You can't sustain a market. You can't sustain a nation like that, at least not long term.
But now
the numbers are high. The numbers are.
I was going to add too. Essentially, the U.S. is kind of over the last, like you said, going back to the 80s and 70s, has lost its competitive advantage. I mean, the only thing I can really think off the top of my head where the U.S. really has an advantage is really in the college educational system with the number of universities, and that's really at the top end of having some of the best research in universities and some of the better, medical colleges and business programs. But as far as industry goes, I'm kind of pressed right now to really think of something where we can just say we're killing.
There's one thing, and as a veteran myself, it's the military. It's the military. That's where the United States is tops in.
Well, even in that area, you've got places like China that some of the technology, like hypersonics technology, they've actually, depending on who you talk to, they think that China may have an advantage there. Now,
China
we
has
definitely
in numbers, but when it comes to straight military and military might, they may have the nuclear weapons and all that, but in terms of just military might, no.
No. Perfect Blackness is right that China does have and they've actually shrunk their military the last 24 months.
Right.
They laid off a lot of the military. They don't need them. They don't need a billion.
Exactly. They got the numbers, but they don't have the actual might that the United. And that's the only thing but for United States' military might, they would have been invaded a long time ago because the people are not ready for this. They have.
Oh yeah, people can't even stay in the house.
The people have been conditioned for weakness, and they have. They're taught in schools to not be, to not think in ways that would be sustainable for a nation. They just haven't.
You know what this brings to mind? We've talked about unemployment, but what about underemployment? Would you just talk about an article, Mike?
Yeah,
where at minimum wage people can't afford an apartment. In what 95% of the United States, you can't afford a 1-bedroom apartment, 2-bedroom apartment. You can't afford a 2-bedroom apartment anywhere in the United States on minimum wage. So people, there's a lot of people who have been chronically underemployed, even though they have gainful employment. The amount of money that they generate from their employment is not enough to cover their basic expenses, let alone provision for the future. Also take into account people who own businesses. Now, somebody who owns a business, you may not consider them unemployed because they're an entrepreneur. But in this particular climate where they're not generating that revenue, I mean, they might as well be unemployed.
Yeah.
I don't think they get unemployment.
Well, the situation is, what you're talking about is some guys who have one job that they're making, and it's not enough to really pay all the bills. They have to have another job to really make it, and then have a lot of extra, any extra money that's going to really help them kind of, over the hump as well. They need to have that, and that's what I'm talking. That's what I was talking about before. A lot of cats.
I don't know who's done
it, and I know a lot of other brothers. A lot of the people who are working, they have some jobs not paying them enough to cover what their basics are. They have that second job. That job is gone. These people their backs against the wall, man. This is some real shit.
I don't know, Mike, if there's been any stats been done on this, but I would guesstimate that of the people who are working, who do have jobs, I would say probably about 50-60% of them are working 2 jobs to make ends meet.
That's most people you see, man.
Right. I think most people you see,
right.
very few people that you see that are actually working full time with benefits, or who are just reliant upon that one job with benefits.
That's right, man.
Myself included.
Speak about it.
I got side hustles.
Yeah,
I guarantee you, people either got side jobs or side hustles to make ends meet.
Speak on it.
Well, look at the manager. Look at the manager. You got guys, who, they got the chats going. They got the cash apps going. They're playing games now. They don't even know how to play the game. Their whole model is about game.
I never understood that putting the game.
Well, rumor has it there's some individuals in the manosphere that are actually, taking flights, for a fee. And the actual service they provide is just their mere presence.
Yeah.
So damn near what's that called, like on Instagram where they say, booking fee, damn near escort services. But I mean, that's neither here nor there.
No, I mean, there are people talking about they brought millions of dollars to the manosphere. How many Mini Coopers can you buy with $1 million? All the dollars. I mean, come on, we have to really look at this here. We have to really look at this here that, the economy, people are trying to have multiple streams of income. People are writing 3 books at a time during the pandemic. Imagine that. 3 books at a time. All of them are upside down too. In ebook without a cover. Imagine that. So,
but all this money that they're making, right, and these big plans they have for the quote unquote community, MOT, how many people have put in orders for bunk beds?
0.
I mean, so they must not be making the money they say they making.
They ain't saving nobody.
Oh my gosh, this is too much. But anyway,
let me get to this next item on the docket from Bloomberg. This is the Wall Street campaign to hire Black workers isn't going well. No shit.
Campaign to hire black talent isn't going so well. For those professionals who get job offers on Wall Street, there's pay and benefits to consider, but also isolation, bias, and racism. She wrote a story on this. For more, we bring in Bloomberg's Kelsey Butler. Kelsey, when you were reporting this out, I'm sure it was difficult. I'm sure you also heard many excuses, reasons, and so on. Tell us what you found.
Yes, definitely. It was really interesting as I spoke with a bunch of Black workers on Wall Street about what are some of the kinds of things that they think about when they take a job. Obviously, the experiences were really individual, but certain themes really came up. And a lot of it was just about legwork. Taking a look at the bio pages of the senior teams and the C-suites of the places that they were interviewing at, to see if diversity was really part of the DNA, and also tapping their own whisper networks to find out about hiring, compensation, and culture, to prevent themselves from really walking into a situation where they would go into a place that could be depleting or even hostile.
Kelsey, what measures are being put in place to make sure this time truly is different, that there really is going to be concerted action on solving a problem that we've known about for a long time and that has been given lip service for a long time?
Definitely. So I think one of the things that is coming up is certain banks, Wells Fargo was the most recent one, are now tying compensation to this issue of getting more diverse candidates in the door. Some of my sources are a bit skeptical because that number of Black workers on Wall Street hasn't really budged from 8% in over a decade. So I think firms really need to take a look at from a top-down in an authentic way to make sure that they're not only getting people in the door, but preventing that from being a revolving door and allowing opportunities for advancement and promotion as well.
Kelsey, in your story, you say that firms can get up to a certain percentage, but it sort of stalls out there. And of course, that's a problem in itself, because if things don't keep growing, then as you say, the pipeline gets depleted. And so then there's a whole other set of excuses. But there are plenty of candidates out there. There are plenty of people going through business schools or into, minority owned firms or just firms that that do cultivate this kind of talent. So why is it so difficult for the bigger banks?
Well, that's a really good question, and it's something that no one has really been able to answer, but those candidates really do exist. And I spoke with one source who is a co-founder of her own asset management firm, who really said, if you aren't able to find diverse candidates, you're not looking hard enough. Another source that I spoke with at an executive search firm said, you can't just post and pray. You really have to go deeper, tap non-traditional channels for finding potential employees, and make sure that there are rules in place to ensure that women and minorities are part of the pools of candidates before the final decision is made.
All right. Yeah, we knew this was going on.
Wait, just real quick, Mike. You see how she tried to slip in at the very end, women and minorities? Now, this article, they was talking about Blacks, and all of a sudden at the end, they tried to sneak in women on that. But go ahead, Mike.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I was on Wall Street, so I definitely know the game. Mike, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what's your experience like?
My experience on Wall Street was I was one of the few, and I was on the retail side, then I moved more towards the trading desk, but there were very few Black people on Wall Street. Like, I was one of the few guys on the street who had not only my Series 24, but my Series 8 or Series 9 or 10 today, which is a compliance registered options principle. You know how many few Black people were there who were crops? I could have leveraged that a lot heavier, but I was kind of doing my own thing. But we had few crops out there. I was like one of them, just a handful of guys. The test wasn't really that hard. It was an options test, so it wasn't really that difficult. It wasn't as vicious as the 7 was. But at the end of the day, there were very few Black people on the street, and there were only a couple. And I was doing well and all that, and a lot of guys that caught a lot of hate, but I was one of the few cats out there, man. I was, there were others. And
what got you into it when so many people weren't? Like what kind of got you in the door, got you to that barrier?
It was basic money. It was money. I was married. I was a very young guy. I had gotten married very young, and I had a family coming up, and I was in school, and I was dealing with some I was dealing with that. I was thinking about a medical career, and then one day, I was talking to some guys, some white dudes. I was in White Plains. They were like, yeah, you should think about getting them to being a stockbroker, and we got a firm here, and we're really killing it. And, maybe you could come out there, So they were very encouraging.
You had that informal network that a lot of us don't.
Yeah, it was an informal network, and then I actually went down. I started applying for jobs to be a stockbroker, and I wanted to work with those guys, but they were up in White Plains. They had a White Plains office, which was close, but I kind of wanted to be in the city. So I sat down with a company called Investor Associates, and I interviewed with them, and I ultimately, they hired me $300 a week, which was ridiculous. But they said you can make a lot of money here, so they sponsored me for the test, and I did all the time to study for the test, and it took me 3 months to study for it. It was that savage, but I had to study. They paid me for it, and I passed. And then as soon as I passed the exam, then I wanted to really start making some real serious money, and I saw I wasn't really gonna get the shot with these guys the way I wanted to. It was a white firm, and Sal Mazio and all those guys were very nice to me, but they were not going to put me in as one of the brokers who were going to get in and really start getting in on some of the games. There's a whole way of where you get in with a certain group. The group you're working with, they get you had to really build money to build accounts, and you had to get a lot of money going, and that means you had to get a lot of good IPO, which we call IPO, and I wasn't getting any of that. So I said, well, but I opened up a lot of accounts, and I was pretty good. So I ended up going to a New York Stock Exchange firm that hired me. Old man Broad, he hired me. He was an old boss, 100-year-old firm, but he wasn't against me. I had a good education. I came out looking real smooth, and he was a nice guy. So I sat down, and he actually hired me on as a broker, and he didn't hold anything back. And then what happened was I was down in Wall Street, 99 Wall. Shit was really going crazy. And then they opened up another Midtown office up off 53rd, off Madison, 53rd and Madison. And Leonard Bernstein, the famous musician, his old office. And it was a great thing. Got a loft outside, and outside overlooking the deck of the city. And that was way off the chain. And we were right next to Trump and all that. So you see him all the time. And you see him all the time. He'd be walking with his hair flowing. He'd be walking like he was souped up and shit. Donnie, what's up, you motherfucker? But anyway, in Midtown, all the celebs and stuff all around. So it was a great time, and we banged it out. But
I was going to ask. I was going to quickly say, I've always wondered, because I believe it was Whitney Young or someone said that most of his jobs, when he had to go try to find jobs for Black people, he said Wall Street was pretty open. So I always wondered if it was more of a money thing, or or just hey, it's really, we don't want you in there.
It all depended. If you were trying to really get hooked up with like an established New York Stock Exchange or established firm, they were a little tougher on you. It was white boys. They ain't really like you like that. They were feeling you like that, and it was about money. And they knew that once you got in there and you started, getting in on the trading game and open up big accounts. If you were at Prudential at the time, Pru. If you were a Pru guy, if you were at, some of the other firms, some of the other bigger houses, if you were at JP and so forth like that had the big names, and even D.H. Blair, which was a smaller firm, but it had a big rep. You had few Negroes walking through the door, man. They didn't like you unless you had real connects. They didn't really like you like that. But, you had a lot of these other smaller, chop firms or whatever. You can get a job at any day of the week, but you weren't going to make any real money there. Because the firms were going to fuck up a lot. They weren't going to have a lot of good product where you could really build a book. The name of the game for you was your first year, you want to at least get $1 million under management. At least that, but with a big firm, where you could really make commissions is where you got, 500 million, close to $1 billion under management. If you had that, that's when you were making, that 800,000-900,000 a year, that kind of thing, just on commissions and just putting them on big board stocks and making, and trading your book right, not burning up, toasting your book up, then you had to build another book, building 2 books in a year. You didn't want to do that. So there was a whole game to this that you had to understand. And the firms that you were at and the people you were working with were the keys. So a lot of blacks got in, but they couldn't get up on the game. I was one of the few guys who were able to kind of get up in the game a little bit. And it was Al Broad and Jay Tanasia, those 2 guys over at AT Broad, New York Stock Exchange House. And they, Jay was an Indian dude, so they didn't, they weren't against me. And plus I came in with a book with a certain amount of money in there. And that's when,
that's big if you can bring your own book.
Yeah, but my book over had a certain amount of money that I didn't tell. So these guys were getting mad at me because I wasn't buying all that fuck shit they were trying to put on me. And I left and I ACAT'd a lot of these guys over. So, so I was able to do that and had some big dudes, ball players, some very wealthy Jewish industrialists, big cats, because I gave them all great stocks. So I was a great stock picker, still am to this day. But these guys, that's how I was able to build a book to give them good stuff and not tear them out the frame. And then put a lot of guys also into tax-free munis, which preserved their income. So they saw I wasn't trying to spin them up and blow their asses up and stuff like that, make all the money I could. So they saw that I had some integrity. So once they start doing $500,000 with you with bond trades, then they started giving you that kind of money for stock as well. So you had to establish a trust game with them. So that's how I did it. But a lot of brothers didn't get that chance, man. A lot of brothers were not getting in there the right way, and that's how it was. And I would say back then we had maybe 8 to 10%, maybe. But it was going down, and they just didn't like you making that money. They didn't like you. A lot of these guys just didn't like seeing you cash a $50,000 check a couple of days before Christmas. They didn't like that.
Yeah, I was going to add
do that kind of thing. They didn't like that.
I was going to quickly add too. It's probably going to be the when she was talking about looking in traditional routes. I was looking. You got fewer and fewer black people who are going in. Black MBAs have stalled, and that's where a lot of these firms will go hire people, if not out of undergrad, it is straight out of business school and give them a shot too. So the big name firms. So if you don't have really the pipeline going in there, you're going to always be behind as far as it coming out and getting hired.
Well, I just want to say this last thing, Mike. This is the only thing that I kind of held against Obama. When Obama had these guys over the table with their butts up in the fucking air, you see, he could have said, listen, I don't want you to drop the economy. And I want you guys over here at Pru. I want you guys, since we're bailing your fucking asses out. Okay, I want you guys at all these top firms. I want you to have a minority hiring program to hire a certain amount of blacks and so forth into these programs right now. I want these brothers coming in here right now. And this is a rider on your money. And this is how we're going to do that. And I want you to start hiring and bringing these people into your firm. See, he could have done that. That's the only thing that I held, because he could have done that and opened this thing up a lot more. He had the power to do that. He had that power, and he didn't do it. And that's the only thing that I'd say. Some of the other stuff, he did some good things, but he didn't do that. And he should have put us on the table like that with our tremendous support behind him, with all these fuck ups in Wall Street and these fucking savages in Wall Street that showed you they were rapacious savages. They could have brought in brothers who could have learned this game right, learned how to get on that trading desk and really play this game correctly. And it was wide open for that. And he didn't put the gun to their head. Me, I wouldn't put the gun to their head. I would have opened their mouth and put the gun to the roof of their mouth and clicked the hammer and said, if you move and don't do what I do, you might live long enough to see your brain hit the back of that fucking wall. See, that's the game I would have been playing with these guys. But he didn't play it like that. So that's what I hold. That's the only thing I hold against him. So that is still affecting where Wall Street is today. And that's my. Anyway, go ahead.
I'm sorry, but this is the one thing that I got into heated arguments with people when Obama had the bankers in there. They later since said, that they were afraid when they went to go talk to him. He did nothing.
They were shitting in their pants.
Shitting in their pants, and I was pissed. And I said, that it was at that time when I was done with Obama.
And his advisors.
I was telling people the same thing you just said.
Well, I can't say we were done with Obama because he did some very good things.
No, I was after that. I was done.
But he could have pushed it. He could have pushed it a lot more.
Done completely.
He could have pushed it a lot more. And Paul Volcker told him, he says, "You got these guys with their breasts open now."
Yeah.
Yep.
Fucking steak from Paul Volcker.
Yep. And his advisors, both Gibbs and Geithner too. They were both pushing for this.
No. Geithner was a different animal. I knew what his deal was. Paul Volcker was an old time white boy up in there, knew the deal, and said, "Look at these fucking pigs, these savages. Look what they did. Make them fucking pay." And Obama didn't do it. Me, I wish I was president.
He didn't do it. He could have been. That was the one time he could have been FDR. He could have been better than FDR, and nobody would have said anything. They could have done anything about it.
He could have gotten him. And see, that's my whole thing. He could have put a rider in there and put brothers strictly into a minority or black training program.
He could have
with JP and with JP and Beige and with Prue and all of them. He could have made them do it, and they would have done it because they wouldn't have had a choice. They would have had to have done it. Where the brothers at? And you drop this economy fucking 2 fucking points. You drop this motherfucker. Some of y'all are gonna face the fucking Justice Department. How about that? He had
Goldman donated a bunch of money to his campaign, and I'm sure that was in the back of his mind.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, I'd have been like,
after that, I was done.
I'd be like, Goldman, listen,
after that,
thank
I
you
was
very
done.
much.
After that, I was done.
Thank you for the money. Now make sure you hire XYZ number of brothers that are gonna come in here. All right. And they'd have been like, and they'd have been like, okay. Anyway, go ahead, guys. I'm done. Go ahead, Mike.
All right. This is from Bloomberg again. Merck CEO says it's harder for Blacks to become executives.
Fortune 500, there are 4 CEOs who are African American. You're one of 4. Are you surprised that in this day and age there's so few? And why do you think there are so few who are becoming CEOs or are CEOs of the Fortune 500 companies?
I would say that if you had gone back 25 years, the most pessimistic observer would have thought we would have had more than 4 out of 500. So I can't say that that's something that doesn't surprise me on one level. On the other level, I think we have to be honest in this country. I think we have to recognize that there's subtleties to our history around race, that people who are African American, for the most part, find themselves in a situation where they have to overcome some customs, some beliefs, and it's much harder for many African Americans to find their way to these positions. I just mentioned that Dr. Vagelos brought me out of a law firm and put me here. I think one of his reasons, frankly, because he said this publicly and in a book, is he wanted to have a diverse management team. And so I was brought in part for that reason, but I was also given opportunities, stretch assignments. And so I don't think my experience is typical for African Americans in corporate America.
What have you done to increase or make certain that you have minority employees at Merck since you've been the CEO?
Well, one of the things that we try to do is to make sure that at the senior level, at our board level and at our senior management level, we are a diverse group. And I think if you look at our senior management team, it's probably, if not the most diverse team in large companies, it's close to that. On the other hand, I think you've got to look at all levels of the company. And what we're trying to do inside Merck is to ensure that we create an environment where all employees, irrespective of gender, race, sexual orientation, can reach their full potential. We haven't gotten to where we need to get, I would say, particularly with respect to African Americans at lower levels below the senior management levels. We have a challenge, and I think we're going to have to step up to that challenge. And the way that you do that is, frankly, you begin to establish targets, and you manage to those targets in the best way you can, consistent with how you have to run your company.
Interesting. Very interesting. Anybody have any thoughts on what Ken Frazier says?
Yep, you've got to treat it. You've got to treat it like anything else, that any other financial metric that you're not making. You got to measure it. You got to constantly ask why, and you got to tie people's performance to it. That's the key here, because like we said on earlier chats, this is a performance issue. More companies that are more diverse perform better, and if you don't have the diversity there,
I don't know if you guys remember GE from the 80s. GE had this thing they used to call a pipeline. And all starting from the bottom, they were bringing in people and training them to run the company. And if a lot of those people, when they didn't become CEO of GE, they went on to become GE was like the Harvard of creating CEOs in America. They had so many ex-GE employees that were CEOs in America that there was a joke that if you didn't come from GE, you didn't learn anything. That's what corporations in America have to do, or if they want if they're serious about hiring Black people, Black men, Black women, they have to have this pipeline that they're gonna bring people in and train them to be CEO, even if they don't become CEO.
But like you just said, they had to be serious about that, and they're not.
Yeah, you bring them in from the bottom. You hire them. Don't care if you hire this guy at the mailroom. And I've seen this happen at United. I see a guy get hired in the mailroom, and within 10 years he was a VP at United.
You see that a lot in places. You're very right about that.
Well,
Yeah, that's when
your
you're getting trained. That's when you're getting trained. You getting trained. They look at you and they give you an assignment, and if you pass that assignment, they put you in another job with another challenge, and they move you around. You're getting challenged all the time, and if you fail, you move on. If you succeed, you move up.
And then if you don't have a degree,
Black people.
and also DE add in. Remember, if you also didn't have a degree and you needed a degree for a certain area, they would have tuition reimbursement, send you to school, get you educated so you can move to that area. See, they have all the things. It's still, some of these companies still have it, but tuition reimbursement, man. Companies that would definitely put money into their employees so they can get educated and to become better to move up in through the corporation. I've seen that happen as well. I see a lot less commitment to that today. So,
well, they're not going to. Well, they have less commitment to it because they're not forced to. I think, and this is just my opinion, I think they're going to have to be compelled to do it. They're not going to do it on their own.
Well, they always have. You're right.
They're not going to do it, so they need to be compelled to do it, either by quotas, either by something. But they're going to have to be compelled, because if we're going to wait for the better natures of them to show up when there's no evidence, when there's no historical evidence that it ever has, they're going to have to be compelled. They're going to have to be compelled with penalty.
Yeah, it's definitely going to have to happen, because, like I said, Obama, if he put a rider on those companies to take that TARP money and all that, you had to hire brothers, of which he easily could have done. That could have been done real nice, real smooth, real easy. But
well, look, and somebody mentioned about that he may have been that those same bankers would have came against him in the election. Look, if he'd have done something like that, he was already popular. If he'd have done something like that, it wouldn't have mattered. He still would have been.
He exactly. He had him. You see, to me, he was, he did not go in on them the way.
Yeah, the people hate the bankers anyway. People hate bankers anyway.
He had them, and remember, they owed they owed their survival to him.
If they don't start doing this thing, you see the country as it is right now, and you're seeing the military moving into every facet of our society. And guess what? Our military has not been taken over by Black men, but there's significant number of Black men in the ranks of the military that are moving into management positions. And when these guys go out the military, where are they gonna go?
A lot of them, that's another thing. If you can get, that's another good place to pull from. You got a lot of former retired military who are overrepresented in these executive level positions. So that's another area when you start talking about a non-traditional way to look, is looking at these guys who have come out, who are officers in the military, bringing them in. A lot of them probably already got advanced degrees and letting them run some things. That's another talent pipe pool as well.
Well, I would say this: most of the guys who I went to school with, who got their degrees, and they went to and they came out of the military. Most of them stayed with the military, man. They didn't translate well, and then to go into the corporate world.
Let's go to MOT.
Yeah, MOT.
Yeah, I mean, like for this type of leadership type of issue, I mean, there has to be a pipeline. I mean, it just has to be, from beginning to end. And I mean, they have to be serious about it.
Yeah.
Like y'all said, that's the only way about it. And I'm not saying wait till they get to the job. I'm like, go to these high schools, go to these community centers. Like, look, we want to put you in a position so that way you can be able to work for our company once you graduate high school. Like, you got to start that early.
Yeah.
I agree. That's why I say these companies need to be compelled. They need to be made to do it because they're not going to do it voluntarily out the goodness of their hearts. They need to be compelled to do it with penalties attached.
They're saying to start your careers, you got to start at the 8th grade. So it's in middle school. It's even
yeah. You have to start very early.
Yeah, that's
very early.
Yeah, the thing is, when they talk about bringing on blacks and stuff like, or bringing on blacks, they're really talking about going into the underserved areas. What they have been doing is they've been going down to, middle class black environments to recruit, which is something that was brought up at NISB a couple months ago.
Or foreign Africans or foreign.
No, not foreigners, but in particular, they're recruiting from these PWIs where black people enroll, right? And so what's happening here is that they're getting a particular black person who's going to be easily adaptable to that environment. Where,
not rock the boat.
Yeah, not challenge the status quo, right? They're just black, they're black in face and name only. Outside of that, they don't really aspire to challenge anything, which is what black people's role in this society has always been, to challenge the status quo. And
you got a lot of managers like that in corporate America who are just kind of there collecting their check. I'm good with my little, 6-figure check, and that's it. I don't want to mess anything up.
They don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to get involved in anything because they got theirs, and we're gonna have to actually have at NISB back in February. We did a live stream on this too back in February. They put these companies in the hot seat on a panel, and each company representative was forced to identify what they're doing in terms of diversity and inclusion and bringing on more black people. And some of them had some really good strategies. Obviously, they tapped the NISB network because they have access to it. But a lot of these other ones, they really don't have an answer. They just don't know what to do. Usually because they don't have any black friends themselves, because they've isolated themselves from black people. And so when it comes down to diversity and inclusion, they can't really find anybody to hire because they don't have those sort of networks to tap into. And unfortunately, a lot of black people get left out of these qualified roles because they've been, these white-run organizations basically have made it impossible for black people to get in at that level, like Ken Frazier was just mentioning. I don't know. I think if you're a company, if you're an organization that has taken tax benefits, tax breaks in these major cities, when you're obligated to actually bring on black people, I think you should actually give back those millions of dollars, man. At some point, you should have to repay it. You shouldn't be able to actually get away with it, and you can't hire contractors either. No more contractors. You got to bring people in FTE full time. And no more, at the entry level point, because that's really how they try to get around this, is try to bring people at the entry level point. No more of that stuff. You got to bring these people up into the C level. All right, let me jump to this next one from Forbes. Minneapolis Black-owned business community on systemic inequality. Let's watch this. Fair use.
Aftermath of the murder of George Floyd by a Minneapolis police officer, thousands of Minnesotans took to the streets to protest systemic racism and police brutality. In the following days, protests spread to cities across the country and around the world. But these massive protests have also called attention to systemic racism in other areas. Despite its progressive reputation, Minneapolis suffers from some of the worst racial disparities in the country. And for Black citizens in Minneapolis, systemic racism is a far-reaching problem with deep roots in the upper Midwest city.
We've been catching hell since I was a boy, right? Like it's always the barrier to entry, you know, being underfunded, divested in things that I didn't even understand as a kid. I just wondered why my neighborhood wasn't improving at the same rate other neighborhoods were. And my mom on Saturdays, we would drive to like Edina or somewhere to go shopping, right? We'd drive to the white areas, but then we had to come back to, and it's like almost like time stopped. And I'm 40 and I'm seeing certain parts of the city almost look as if we haven't moved an inch. What got me into this business is my past, growing up as a kid in North Minneapolis, who got into some trouble. You know, sold drugs, and cutting hair gave me a creative outlet to have that direct exchange with my customer and get rewarded immediately, kind of like drugs or anything else. And so it was a passion for me, like in high school, and I cut a lot of hair, and that's what I wanted to do. So when I was 18, went to barber school, graduated, started a barbershop. There's great opportunity, but there's a lot of challenge, because we're talking about access to capital. The businesses that are surviving this, that are gonna make it to the other side, either they have or very well capitalized, or they have relationships. And I think, you know, intentionally and unintentionally, the consequences of where Black businesses are is a result of kind of this system of oppression in a way, right? Like, and we're really feeling the effects of it.
For every business, funding is key, but due to a number of factors, including the lack of generational wealth caused by centuries of systemic racism, Black business owners face more barriers to get their businesses off the ground. Lewis Hunter is the owner of Trio Plant-Based, a vegan soul food restaurant in uptown Minneapolis. His cousin, Philando Castile, was killed by a Minneapolis police officer in 2016. After Castile's killing, Lewis was arrested during a protest and charged with 2 counts of felony riot. He maintained his innocence, and the charges were dropped after prosecutors were unable to find any evidence for their case.
As a Black business owner, the number one problem is, funding. We don't have the funding, the credit, all the shenanigans that you need to get where you need to be. And I think it should be more easier for Black people to get funding, man, because there will be so many more businesses, you know. We was blessed to find a place in Uptown. Uptown is more of a uppity scale, you know, neighborhood. It's not too many, it's predominantly white, not too many Blacks here. So to have a vegan restaurant, plant-based restaurant on Lake Street is, this is epic. This is history. This is our history. This is Minnesota's history. We need to find a way that those businesses last just like the white ones. You know, there's not one, I don't know, there's one Black business that's been over here for over 20 years. So how do we keep those around? I want myself as the owner of Trio Plant-Based to be a part of something like that, so we can rejuvenate more Black business down the line. On top of that, this rejuvenates general wealth for Black people. We don't have that.
How would you like to help local businesses and get compensated very well, all without ever leaving?
This lack of generational wealth in Black communities in Minneapolis didn't happen by accident. Decades of redlining and racist housing covenants during most of the 20th century turned Minneapolis into one of the most segregated and unequal cities in America today. As a result, just 25% of Black families in Minneapolis own a home, compared to 76% of white families today, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. The median household income for a typical Black family in Minneapolis is just $38,000, while the median household income for a typical white family in the city is $84,000. The idea of owning a home or a business in Minneapolis if you're Black can seem like a pipe dream. But even for Black business owners who were able to achieve that dream, it's still an uphill battle to keep their businesses afloat as they continue to fight the ripple effects of the discriminatory policies of the past and present.
The murder of George Floyd, for me, you know, I was traumatized as a Black man. My initial reaction was just like, just kind of went, man, like again? It was literally, I'm like, again, how? I was confused, right? I was shaking in my core, man, you know, and on so many different levels. My reaction to the peaceful protests, I felt proud when people were gathering, and I felt a sense of like, I'm with you, and I agree that people should vocalize that pain. I struggle with the destruction of the community, and obviously we know it's conflicted who caused that destruction. Because we have to remain here, right? We have to live here. My aunt has to have food. And I was very proud of the youngsters and the groups mobilizing. And I was saddened when I saw things go up in flames. And I felt, even from business owners of having a business myself, I don't want anything to happen to my brick and mortar place, right? Like I don't, but at the end of the day, I can replace a building, I can't replace a life.
Although much of the protests in Minneapolis were peaceful, the city suffered several incidents of looting, vandalism, and arson. When the dust settled, business owners awoke to find their buildings damaged or in some cases completely destroyed. For Flora Westbrooks, owner of Flora's Hair Designs, the destruction of her business on West Broadway came just as she was starting to recover from the financial hardship caused by the coronavirus pandemic.
About almost 7 o'clock, I was just getting ready to have dinner. My cousin called me and she said, my granddaughter is on West Broadway and Sean, which is my son, his building is on fire. And immediately I thought, if his building is on fire, it's gonna catch my building. It's gonna start my building to burning. So I drive up there and my sister was with me. We drove up there and we couldn't get close to that fire. And I just could not believe what I saw when I got there.
Haas Executive Education and Communications Excellence has designed a custom online edition to give.
And I sat in my car for, like 5 minutes. And I'm like, I gotta leave. I can't take this, So I came back here, backed into my driveway, but I never got out the car. It was just horrified just to see what I built from scratch, from my own hands, what I worked so hard for, what my son worked so hard for, to see it just go up in flame like that. They don't know my story, because if they knew my story, they knew our story, they would have did that to us. They did not know my story, how hard it was. They took away everything from me. They took away my dream. They took away my income. They took everything away, everything I built that. I think Black-owned business in the city of Minneapolis in disbelief. They don't trust. We don't trust. We don't trust because we don't trust banks. We don't trust lenders. We don't trust police officers. We don't trust some of our officials. We don't trust them.
And I can remember vividly my daughter asking, like, why do you just let up? And I said, maybe we've been actually let up for years. And she's like, what you mean by that, Dad? I'm like, they've been doing this to this for us for years. You know, and they not letting up. And then the next day come by and we see how the neighborhood was getting looted, destroyed in ways. And it was like, this is a sign of somebody's tired. They had enough. And she asked me the question again, Dad, why are you doing this? I said, they had enough. They had enough of what? Get paid. Need to put on their neck.
70% of the jobs in our community come from small business. And if they're underfunded, undercapitalized, or burned, the people who need those jobs don't have work, you know? I mean, the ripple effects are frightening.
I'm hoping that they rebuild our business back, build it even stronger. You know, support us, support these Black businesses, support what we need, listen to us, you know, and we that's the thing, we don't get a chance to express ourselves, and they don't care, they have not been caring. So I'm hoping that they come in and structure everything on West Broadway and build up our community, build up our business. In this city, we don't believe anything right now. And there's nothing on the table for us, nothing.
Hey, come here. Man, you still working that 9 to 5. You still haven't cracked the code for entrepreneurship. You haven't lived the life.
I haven't came up with the right.
Another one of those damn game videos.
Yep. But it should absolutely happen for Black business owners. I know we need funding. I know we need support because we have so many hard challenges.
We do a lot of design thinking, right? Like, what is the outcome that you want? And if you don't design and create mechanisms to get to those outcomes, 10 years from now, we're still gonna have the same exacerbated gaps between Black and white wealth. There's redlining in banking today. There's certain businesses you don't even have to say they're code words for not bankable. That's a direct correlation to the systemic kind of issues that we've been facing. And so the justification is by the banks, we just don't think they're bankable, right? And from a number standpoint, you could justify it because you don't have precedent. But this for me goes to intent. Like if a bank is really about supporting a community, you're in the risk business. There's no business that is a guarantee. I don't care if it's been a family-owned organization for 100 years. They also could hit a rough patch and or go out of business and or make some bad plays. You're in a risk business. And so how can you not take a risk on a whole community of people? And that mistrust in our community, justified, because it's real.
I don't know. Anybody have any thoughts?
Yeah.
Perfect Blackness.
Yeah, I do. And the reason why that I have my hand raised when they start going into the whole generational wealth thing. Look, that's something that I can personally relate to. I think all African Americans can really relate to this, but I can really relate because it was voiced to me. You know, both sides of my family, my mother and my father, my grandparents on both of their sides, or my great grandparents on both of their sides, they were business owners in Mississippi and in Alabama, and they both shared businesses in Arkansas. So they were really big in terms of business. And my grandmother was telling me this, that because she was born in the Turkish, she died she was about 106 when she passed away. But I remember her telling me a lot when she was a kid that she remembers her father always complaining that one of his businesses was he owned barbershops, but he was a carpenter by trade. So I don't know how he did that, but he was a carpenter by trade, but he owned a bunch of barbershops. And she would tell me how she remember how he was would complain that another one of his buildings, she say his buildings, but I would guess that one of his shops had been burned down, right? And he had been threatened not just by local Klansmen, but by the local authorities. And how he was always harassed and everything. And even after all of that, he still maintained all his business and proper paperwork, proper taxes, everything's up to date to the letter of the law. And so too with my great grandmother, who she was a seamstress, and she sold a lot of garments and everything. So, and they both had thriving businesses, but they had to flee, literally flee during the 20s because of during that whole Great Migration thing. They had to they left thriving businesses that was in good tech and land. They owned property in 3 states. They had to leave. They had to flee, escape, because their lives are being threatened by not only just by but local authorities. Their businesses had been burned to the ground one by one, and they had to migrate. And I was born in St. Louis, but they also, a lot of them migrated to Chicago here because I live in Chicago now, right? And it's ironic because I didn't come to Chicago for that purpose, but it was family related. But they came to St. Louis, Chicago, to be redlined. And my family hasn't been the same since then. It's just been struggle and struggle and struggle, and even with each successive generation, it's gotten worse and worse and worse and worse. Okay, and when they talk about how Black people don't trust banks, don't trust law enforcement, don't trust the political system, that is a fact, and in particular the political system, because I hear a lot of Black people say that how that lament into as to why Black Americans really don't participate in the process. When I was in the Army, I spent 10 years in the Army. When I was in the Army, I actually saw this for myself when overseas. I actually saw one of the tactics that the United States government and the military would do to destabilize countries that they want something from, is that they would encourage the people not to participate in the political process, because what that does, that the next thing to that is revolt. And Black Americans have been on that edge for decades. We never really trusted the political process. We've never trusted never trusted banks and all that type of stuff. And that is actually, that distrust is well earned, it has actually hurt us as well. But when I hear about that, I'm be finished in a minute. But when I hear about the generational wealth thing, because I can point to how being denied generational wealth has directly affected myself, my family. It hurt us. But my thing, the only difference between me is that I can point to people who voice that to me and show me pictures of that, and how I saw my grandmother just waste away in anguish because she could pass nothing on. She could pass nothing on to us but hope. And when I hear about that generation, it triggers me a bit. It triggers me because it pisses me off when I can just imagine where would I be, where would my brothers and sisters be had we not been
Your mic went out perfect.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. I think you accidentally muted yourself.
Oh, I didn't mean to, but yeah, I could just it angers me to to wonder where would I be, where would my family be, had we not been denied generational wealth, had we not been denied the ability to inherit hundreds of acres of land and businesses that were thriving. I mean, we did the business and acres of land that was in good tax status with the local municipalities. And it bothers me when black people try to make an argument that black Americans don't deserve reparation.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, no, I was going to quickly add what you were saying with regards to banks. I don't know if you've heard of the Freedom Trust, not Freedman's Bank, Frederick Douglass established it, but when it folded, he talked about how much it was going to set Black people back and how big of a tragedy it was when it folded during Reconstruction. He saw the damage that did. And then as far as, people being intimidated to run off their land, that's what a lot of people don't understand with lynching and things like that. A lot of that was people being lynched for being successful in business and people not liking it, and then basically coming up with trumped up charges to attack them and destroy their businesses. Ida B. Wells showed all of that. So I know exactly what you're talking about as far as people doing well, thriving, and then being forced off their land or leaving their businesses or whatever, or being killed for it because people in the town didn't like it.
Oh yeah, she showed me, my grandma before she passed, she showed me pictures of this. And some of that, a lot of that land is sitting on some thriving that were corporations are actually sitting on right now. And years ago, I tried to do a little, I don't know, I guess you could say historical forensics. And a lot of that stuff is really, really hard to come by.
Some of these lands you were sitting on had oil underneath them, oil and gold.
Well, I'm not going to say the corporations that sit on it now, or some of the thriving businesses that sit on it now, or some of the suburbs that sit on it now. But I don't think none of them are oil, but that probably was.
Land down in Oklahoma, so like these are facts.
Oh yeah, if you're in Oklahoma, absolutely.
These are facts.
Absolutely. When I was I spent several years in Oklahoma as well, in Fort Sill. So yeah, if you had anyone ran off some land there, it was likely oil. But I said my family, they're like I said, they're from Mississippi and Alabama and Arkansas. They had business in all three of those states. They got ran off of all of them.
Yeah, people having land in that area, that gave you a sense of economic independence, because my family has land in the South as well too, and they always talked about the places where you saw like Black people being able to organize and participate in the civil rights movement and all of that. It was places where people owned their land versus if you didn't own any land and you were involved in something like that, whoever owned it would throw you off of it, or banks would try to call in the loan, stuff like that. People fire you. So that was one of the big things too, is it gave you a sense of independence, and that was a threat to the whole caste system in the South.
But that's just the thing. At least according to my grandmother, the land that they had and the businesses they had, they didn't owe the banks anything. They owed the banks nothing. They owned their land right out, and the businesses that they had was owned right out. They didn't owe the banks anything, no loans or anything. Everything was bought straight out. That's why it's so sad that when I think about that, and I try not to think about it too much because I do get angry, because we did, even at that time, we owed the banks. My family owed the banks nothing, and the fact that they had to leave because they weren't protected by the local authorities, from the clans and from the authorities themselves.
Yeah, I was going to say.
When I think about African Americans, I'm telling you right now, I do not think that my case or that my story in that is unique. It's not unique. I would say probably most Black Americans, especially living in any cities that are up and down the Mississippi, are if you really did some historical forensics, you would find similar stories. Most Black people today living there, they don't know too much about their history past their mother, maybe their grandparents. Most of them just don't know. You know, and that can be for a lot of reasons. Because I can tell you, my grandmother, she didn't want to talk about it. It was painful for her. She just did not want to talk about it. She took a lot of stuff to her grave. She just didn't want to talk about it. So that's, again, I have to say this again. When black people talk about that, you know, they try to make a case against reparations, I really want to strangle the air out of their fucking lungs. Because they don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Yeah, I was going to add too. You were talking about not even just towns along the in the South. All those people, when you start, I'm sure you know about the migration patterns of, like you said, you're born in St. Louis, ended up in Chicago. That's where a lot of people from Mississippi ended up. Mississippi, Alabama, Chicago, Detroit, Gary, versus South Carolina, Florida, and those areas more ended up in either DC or New York. But people who are in these cities now as well too. Like you said, they may not know, but they have that same history as well of, having parents or grandparents that had to leave the South for, fear of survival and safety, who had probably a thriving life and having to move to these cities and live in these slums in the ghetto.
Let me jump to this last item on the docket. We'll close out. This is from Al Jazeera. UBI, is recession pushing the U.S. towards permanent cash payments? As Congress prepares to debate the next economic stimulus package, UBI pilot projects are underway. Will never happen in America. No UBI. Yeah.
Cuts.
40-year-old Ramona Ferreira lives in the South Bronx section of New York City, cohabitating with her grandmother in a public housing building for seniors. A Harvard University graduate, she worked as a civilian employee for the Pentagon and paid off $200,000 in student loan debt before her career was derailed by a chronic autoimmune disorder. Today, she makes a living selling baby clothes through her company, Ojala Triz, a social good enterprise inspired by Hispanic heritage. But it's not enough to make the ends meet. I get public assistance at $198 a month, $89 in food stamps, and $215 for housing allowance. Her financial situation tipped into crisis this March when the coronavirus sent New York City into lockdown. Ferreira found herself with only $5 in her wallet and $90 in the bank. But a one-off check from $1,000 from a pilot experiment in direct cash payments helped pull her back from the brink. Ferreira said the stipend changed everything and allowed her to invest in marketing for her baby apparel business. She is one of 1,000 New Yorkers in her borough to receive a one-off cash grant of $1,000 as part of a Neighborhood Trust Financial Partners and Savers Life Cash Relief Program, an experimental approach to putting struggling Americans back on their feet. The initiative was funded by former United States presidential candidate Andrew Yang's Humanity Forward organization as a way to spotlight how universal basic income could preserve livelihoods. With guaranteed income floor, UBI could consist of direct, unconditional, and monthly government cash payments available to everyone, irrespective of their wealth or how much money they make. Several high-profile pilot projects around the country are testing the effect direct cash payments can have on livelihoods. And with millions of Americans receiving temporary emergency federal government pandemic aid, interest in making UBI a permanent feature of the U.S.'s social safety net has arguably never been greater. The U.S. coronavirus response signed into law on March 27th by President Donald Trump included one-off stimulus checks, a temporary federal top-up for unemployment insurance, and business payroll protection. UBI combines elements of these CARES Act components, but would require massive new legislation to enact. UBI is not being proposed for the new stimulus package Congress. What the hell is that? Package Congress is set to debate when it returns from recess on Monday. But with the $600 federal top-up weekly unemployment benefits expiring next week, and more than 30 million Americans currently collecting jobless benefits, the inadequacies in the nation's social safety net have been laid bare. UBI aims to fill those gaps by doing what it says on the tin, provide a basic income. Neighborhood Trust Financial Partners in New York City was chosen by Yang's group to distribute the cash relief payments at low and middle income participants. The money was dispersed, definitely helped them get over the crisis for a few weeks. For a couple weeks. Justin Zinkin, CEO of Neighborhood Trust, told Al Jazeera, Zinkin sees the pilot project as an opportunity to make UBI more accepted as a potential alternative to the web of arcane government benefits programs that often fall short of covering basic needs. Critics of the current benefits system lambast that services are strewn across multiple agencies and disdain that cultural judgments are often baked into eligibility verification. A key tenet of purists UBI is that there would be no means of testing to determine who could qualify for regular monthly payments. David Simpson, another Bronx resident in the Save Her Life project, filed for bankruptcy after health problems and career obstacles left him vulnerable. In this particular instance, it's a stopgap and a reaction to millions of people falling behind so drastically. Simpson, 41, said of the $1,000 cash payment he received in April that allowed him to focus on getting back to work and straighten out his finances. Simpson, who lives with his father and stepmother, got sick with COVID-19, as did the rest of the household at the end of March. He told Al Jazeera that a federally funded, consistent UBI could alleviate huge mental and psychological burden. I would have totally been able to develop professionally. Folks can take more risk, work on the thing that they value, and turn it into a product. UBI has won support on radically polar sides of the U.S. famously fractured political spectrum. Progressives embrace its ability to help redress staggering inequality and bolster the social safety net, while some libertarians like UBI potential to shrink government bureaucracy. Veronica Di Ruggi, an economist with George Mason University Libertarian Mercatus Center, told Al Jazeera she could support UBI if it led to an abolition of minimum wage and other labor rules that she believes get in the way of low-income earners working on
deregulation. Wow.
Yeah, that's what you'll get from these people who are on the right, who supported your Charles Murray, those types of people. They'll support UBI, but they want the welfare state eliminated as on the other end.
She does not, however, promote the idea of distributing a basic income universally. With cash payments, it makes no sense to tax people just to give them back the money, she said. Given to people at all income levels creates a weird baseline, very counterproductive. No full throttle fan of UBI, Di Ruggi believes it creates a disincentive to work. The notion that suddenly people will be productive is not validated by the data, she said. UBI makes people happier instead of chasing unemployment checks. Researchers last year in Finland found that their UBI experiment indeed lifted people's spirits but kept them jobless. But a 1970s pilot experiment in Manitoba, Canada, helped improve the quality of life in the rural community of Dauphin across the board without discouraging residents from continuing to work. The coronavirus crisis is lending fresh urgency to validate or invalidate previous UBI research. In California, the Stockton Economic Empowerment Demonstration, SEED, UBI pilot offers a guaranteed monthly income of $500 that is time limited but unconditional. The test was extended from 18 months to 2 years because of the pandemic, with project administrators not willing to cut off funds when people are most in need. Stacia West, a professor at the University of Tennessee, has been researching UBI for many years and serves on the board of SEED. Decades of financial policies have excluded the most vulnerable from accumulating wealth, she said, adding that reknitting the social contract could make the typical American family less economically fragile. At only $500, the Stockton Experiments payment are not enough to cover basic needs for a month, which underscores another aspect of the UBI debate. How many existing benefits, such as housing vouchers, food stamps, and housing vouchers and food stamps, would be eliminated if cash payments became permanent? West told Al Jazeera that the seed control trial is designed to test the efficiency of UBI as a financial vaccine, alongside the existing safety net, arguing that cash payments should be used to smooth out income volatility. Scott Sayers is a UBI advocate and political advisor. He told Al Jazeera that during the course of Yang's presidential campaign bid, national support for UBI grew by 6 percentage points. But according to the research at Stanford University, between the end of March and the end of April, support for UBI increased by 20 more points. Santons believes the pilot in Stockton and a similar one in Jackson, Mississippi, build upon the evidence from previous basic income studies that showed how people spend money on the same stuff that we all find most important in our lives. Back in the Bronx, Ramona Ferreira sees herself as proof of how transformative UBI can be. I've been blessed, but very depressed at times, said Ferreira. Getting that money was permission to think, she said. That's what UBI really represents for people like me below the poverty level. Interesting. Very interesting, in my opinion. I don't know about anybody else on the panel.
Well, I mean, the results are in. I mean, there's no more debate about UBI. I mean, the only thing we have now is the old talking points before there was actually facts on the actual outcomes of UBI. So that's what they're doubling back to.
Hey Mike, how long have we been? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm until you finish.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I'm done.
Okay, I was just gonna say, hey Mike, how long have we been talking about UBI here on this channel?
Before the channel even started, probably back to 2017.
All right, I remember a couple of years ago, myself and that guy BGS, we were having a long conversation for maybe 4 or 5 hours, and ultimately we had to talk about the UBI. You know, we went over the economy and what was going on Wall Street, but we talked about the UBI. We both agreed that this was going to happen. This was I don't know, maybe 2017 or so, maybe sometime around there. So that's where we've been talking about this for years, and here we are. So it's not a surprise to us, but we're definitely going to have to get involved in this. Now you have to understand, other societies and cultures have dealt with this. The Romans back in 2,000 years ago, 2,500 years ago, over 1 million days ago, they had a form of a UBI in their bread allocations. So they had their bread allocations that they gave to Roman citizens. That kept them calm, kept them from going crazy. But they had bread allocations. In Europe, wasn't a new idea. King Louis XV, I believe, and a few others felt that they should be giving a UBI or a basic income to their citizenry. So this UBI thing is not a new thing. It's been around for actually of quite a long time, and I think we're definitely going to see it here on a more permanent basis. We've definitely seen it, as far as SSIs, and some of these other kind of checks that that people do get. But I think for the general population, in some ways, I think that we're going to be heading a lot closer to that. And Yang talked about that as a candidate, certainly. And we have been talking about this on this channel and then before for years. So here it is, guys.
Well, I think you're right, Nagon. They're gonna have to call it something else. They're not gonna be able to call it UBI. It's just
they'll call it.
I don't
know. They may call it UBI. Who knows?
I don't think so. I just, if they just came right out and said this is just going to be a UBI, a universal basic income. I don't see that happening in here, at least not in my lifetime. I just
Only thing I'm going to say is you got a lot of so-called conservatives and Republicans and red states and all that. They taking them checks, all that conservative stuff, and all of a sudden now they're taking them checks.
Individualists.
Yeah, you're right in terms of owning.
They taking them checks, and a lot of them are crying, and a lot, rugged individualists.
In terms of
they're
the
taking
people,
those
yes,
checks.
they're going to take the checks.
They're taking them checks now.
In terms of political and policy and all of that. I just don't see it happening, man. I think the people.
It's happening now.
Would rather see this nation burn before that happens.
Really? Really?
Yeah, I do.
I don't know where you've been in the last.
Absolutely.
I don't know where you've been in the last 90 days.
I think they are so.
I don't know where you've been in the last 90 days.
The rhetoric of free market capitalism that they would sooner see this nation burn down to the ground.
I think people would sooner see themselves. Listen, in all honesty, fam. In all honesty, I hear what you're saying, but I think all that is a crock of shit. Now, the reason why I say that is because I think when it comes down to Maslow's seven hierarchy of needs, all right, feeding yourself and greasing, staying alive is kind of at the top of the fucking list, and that's where a lot of people are going to find.
Don't get me wrong. I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
I am in favor of you. I don't disagree with you. I just don't see them doing it.
Oh, we're already doing this. MOT, what do you think?
I haven't seen it, and look, I'm a C.
I mean,
I have not seen this come across the politics. So if they're going to have to call it something else, they're not going to be able to call it UBI. They're not going to be able to do that.
I think it's going to be called survival, and they're going to do whatever. Go ahead.
I mean, it's what this actual stimulus check from the government was. It's a form of it.
Well, that's a stimulus check, but they didn't call it UBI. That's what I said.
Okay. It gave you a universal basic income. It was a basic amount that went to everybody.
It is that. I mean,
so
your unemployment insurance
on a permanent basis. You think that's going to be able to fly over and even with these policies, with these
yes.
I don't think it's going to happen.
I think so.
I would need to see if that. I believe it. I think it should happen.
The Republicans already complaining.
I just don't see it. I don't see it happen.
The Republicans already saying we don't have to change our.
I hope I'm proven wrong, but I don't.
What I think that he's saying is that I think he's implying that the nomenclature itself is off-putting.
That's what I'm saying. I mean,
what I'm saying is they're gonna say fuck the nomenclature after a while and say this is UBI and my bank account is NOI.
Well, here's my prediction.
I think
tax enforcers are going to come out before they ever call it UBI openly.
I think what he's referring to is the actual. I think the GONA is referring to the potential recipients of that assistance. Those that actually need it won't care what it's called, but those people who are doing fine without UBI at this particular point will probably have some staunch opposition to the idea of basically, socializing or communism or whatever form they want to call it, based on the actual nomenclature itself, indicates that's what it is. And it's like a similar concept to, people who are proponents and those that are in opposition of the concept of game, even though depending on the actual circle of people that you are around, you may use some iteration of social skills, but that's a whole nother topic in and of itself.
But I was going to add, it depends on how it works. Because if you follow the Yang model and it's just, hey, I'm going to give every family the same amount. You got some families who, the wife may stop working and stay at home, and they may use it that way to supplement it that way, versus people on the lower end of the spectrum may use it, stabilize their household, go back to school. So I think implementation is a big part of it as well, too. As far as people willing to do it in this country, from what I've seen historically, this country has never had the mantra of let it burn down. When pushes come to shove, these people have cared enough to reform this system so they can maintain their wealth and keep this thing going.
Well, I mean, like the title says,
wealth is concentrating at the top, guys. It's concentrating at the top. Wealth is not spread out as equally as a lot of people.
In order to have a permanent UBI, the wealth that's concentrated, they're going to loosen up that tight fist.
Well, I mean, even
see
still,
all the guns that are flying off the shelf in this country.
Do it voluntarily.
Well, even still,
we've seen that.
Well, I mean, even still with UBI, right? You know, this idea that that somehow the extremely wealthy are going to be up in arms. Well, I mean, like the title of this stream is, the actual alternative is pitchforks. So at that point, you either
they would see those pitchforks.
Hold on. In the words
voluntarily, that's all I'm saying.
No, what I'm saying is that
they have to see those pitchforks first.
What I'm saying is that, in the words of our esteemed MOT, pitchforks or bunk beds, you choose.
Do you see all the guns flying off the shelf right now?
Well, those aren't pitchforks because no one has come after them with the guns yet.
Hold on 1 second, fam. Hold it. Hold it, Peter. Hold on. My man, did you not look at them cats rolling up on that on the state building in Michigan, strapped like bamboo, fam? What you talking about?
No, I saw
what you talking about? They definitely gonna come out there. They're gonna bring guns to the game, fam.
Because I'm a big I'm big on the Second Amendment, especially for Black folks. I support that.
Yeah, but that's not what the Second Amendment is about, though.
That's exactly correct. Second Amendment is about something a little bit different. These dudes were rolling up with their guns talking about, you ain't gonna treat us like no nigga. We better get some dollars. We better get something, or we gonna go to guns. That's what they were saying.
I mean, that's already against the law with felony menacing. Like you can't. I mean, if they wanted to charge you with that, like you don't have a defense. Like I showed up armed with a mask at a state house. Like
they didn't charge those dudes in Oregon who took over the state house a couple of years.
No, of course, no. I mean, they did charge them. They got off.
Yeah. That is true. That is true. To about the what was the group that they called them?
The Bundy people.
Bundy, and some of the guys who did resist and elderly gave them a problem. They did plant one in the grass. They planted one of them dudes. So
and they did that over some grazing on public lands that they didn't even know.
They did plant that. They did plant a motherfucker. Let's keep it a buck. So at the end of the day, these guys have to get ready for a little something. And these guys will go to guns for it. They're gonna go to guns on you, man. They understand that. So this is where we're at. You guys got to understand, this is a crossroads here. A lot of people not seeing what's really going down. I know there's a certain level of kind of denial as to what's happening, but don't be in denial, man, on what's going on. We're very real about what's getting ready to come down the pipe.
You got 1 out of 2 Americans that have lost their jobs.
I'm not in denial what's happening. I guess what I'm saying is that I don't think that
I'm not saying you are. I'm not saying you. I'm saying
right. I'm not denying what's happening. Because I see it. I just don't think that the pain is hard enough. I don't think the pain.
Oh, you getting ready to see some pain, fam.
I don't think the pain is big enough.
You getting ready to see
for the people to come out and
spinal pain.
So to speak.
You gonna see that
spinal? Hey, Nagone, you have to let him talk.
I'm sorry, Mike. Go ahead, brother. I apologize. Go ahead, man. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, the only thing I'm saying is that I don't deny any of that. I'm just saying I don't think that the pain has been dispersed enough to enough people, and that the pain is hot enough yet. People haven't felt it enough. People are feeling it, and we see the fact that we even talking about it. That's evidence. We see it. We see that it's there. And we see the danger. We see the potential of that danger. But I don't think I don't think it's painful enough yet. I don't think the pain has been dispersed enough yet for the people in mass, or at least I'm not even saying most, but a good enough people to come out with pitchforks that's going to get their attention.
Yeah.
I don't see that yet.
Look at things from this perspective. Like, okay, I'm gonna have to evict some people this year. 2 people already off top. I got to evict 2 tenants at least. The rent that they're paying now, they're never, ever going to be able to find that rent. because the previous owner had the property for so long, he was able to afford that rent because the price that he bought that, he could charge that rent and still turn profit. But see, I have to be able to turn profit, so I got to charge my rent. I got to evict these people. Now, but here's the thing, right? It may not seem let me just ask this question, and I'm gonna leave it at this. What is a actual sufficient yet sustainable number for UBI to actually work, like per household?
That I don't know.
I mean, it's regional.
That I don't know.
UBI is dependent on region.
That's
well,
regional.
you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say that I think that it would depend on where you live, because I know living in Chicago, it would probably be you would need a little bit more to live in, I don't know, somewhere in buttfuck Montana. I mean, I don't know.
No.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, he is right about it. And Perfect Black, I apologize for talking over you before. I apologize about it. I'm sorry. I won't do that again.
No, you good. You good. It's all good.
Yeah. I apologize. But overall, I do believe that we are going to see more of a UBI, because as this economy begins to contract even a bit more, and with the problems that we're currently having, and how businesses are going to start to reshape their companies, there's going to be some real issues going on here. And how we're going to handle that, I think the pitchfork times are somewhat coming. We've seen a little bit of that already, and I believe we're going to see a lot more before this thing really begins to open up. Now, I know other brothers here have some very dour looks about this, and we think that this thing is not going to open up well. And Mike, earlier in this broadcast, opened up with some articles that spoke about how this thing wasn't going to really open up till a lot later. So how are people going to really get over nicely for the next 3 years or 2.5 years or so? How's that really going to happen? And if you think that they're going to live off their integrity, I don't see how that's going to work as well. So I would like to know, is there any other options that we're realistically going to be looking at? I don't like the whole deal of everybody being on the dole, as they say. I'm not down with that. But unfortunately, I have to be realistic about what we are potentially looking at and how we're going to have to try to wade our way through this. And is this going to also become permanent for certain workers? There you go.
I mean, for the amount of money that we're going to be spending on a UBI, we might as well do a damn Marshall Plan and put everybody to work.
Everybody.
Might as well.
Yep.
But again, I think we want to. I think we want to really think about. There's one thing that I think that I haven't really heard too many people talk about is the remarkable tolerance to pain that we the people, and I say we in general, that we the people have. The American people have a very high tolerance to pain.
I disagree.
And until that tolerance is used up, those pitchforks are not going to come out yet, because you have a high number of people who still have a really unbelievable faith in the system.
But you got to see right now. No, I was just going to quickly say right now, we really haven't. The government's been floating this economy, so you really haven't seen the shoe fall from all this yet. Like Nicole said, around October, when those evictions start kicking in, I mean, you already saw what happened with George Floyd died and the response to that.
Yeah.
I mean, people start losing their jobs. You're going to see more of that out in the street.
Yeah, you're going to see the pitchforks come. You're going to see the pitchforks come. But according to the hood conservative, work is always better than free money. Well, guess what? You got 40+ million people collecting unemployment because there are no jobs, man. What's your policy, Mr. Hood?
Like I said, Mike, 1 in 2 Americans lost their job during all this.
Yeah. Go ahead, MOT.
Problem is every single month it's going to be another magnitude of this so-called pain that you think people ain't got. Dude, if you look at rural America, a lot of these people are moving back onto that homestead land that they let their crazy kinfolks on. Now you got 2 and 3 families on there.
Talk about it. Talk about it, MOT. Talk about it.
I'm telling you, this pain is immense, and every month it's just going to ratchet up more and more. Month, not years, month. We're not going to last 3 years.
No.
Okay, MOT, can I ask you this?
No, I talk to MOT regular. MOT's in his truck.
I'm just saying that the American people we don't know what I'm just saying that the American people, we are tolerant to that pain. I'm not saying that
No,
that
no.
we're not going through the pain.
No, hold on
I'm
a
just saying
second.
that tolerance, we don't know
No.
we don't know just how tolerant the American people are. And from what I've seen, American people
Dude,
are
listen.
real tolerant to pain.
Perfect blackness. Perfect blackness. I be talking to MOT, right? I'm talking to him, he's in his truck. And we talk all the time. And man, he's like, yo, Nagon, listen, man, I'm rolling through here, man. I'm looking out at all this land. People are taking out small shops. They building these things up. They putting containers together. They moving in onto this land like this. This man is driving cross country looking at I'm not driving cross fucking country. I'm not doing that on a regular. This man has crossed this fucking country 2 or 3 times already. About 3 or 4 times damn near this year already. All right. Looking at this in the heartland. This is this man right here. Fucking MOT.
I go through 1 week to Portland. I see some more shit. I go back to the East Coast. I come back. I see a little bit more shit. We're talking about a week ago. Shit that I didn't see at exits. I'm starting to see more and more shit by the week. So that's what I'm saying. Months. I'm telling you, this shit is going like, dude, these people are in an enormous amount of pain right now.
That's those rural areas where they're not going to have these high-tech jobs coming to you.
That's
You can
correct.
get into.
Correct.
That's right.
Rural America is going to bring this thing
rural
home.
areas ain't getting no tech. They're not getting any tech at all, much less bandwidth.
And they're just above the poverty line right now. Most of them are living just above the poverty line before this hit. My man, this shit is getting realer than a motherfucker. Because it's not on the news, doesn't mean it's not happening.
Yeah. And so to answer someone's comment in the chat that if it's based on region, then it can't be universal basic income. You have to understand that universal basic income is a global initiative. Okay, it's not just a United States thing; it's a global initiative. And so when they tried it out in the European countries, the country itself is not broken up into multiple states like America is. And so it's a universal basic income for all intents and purposes. That's the nomenclature that is being used here for that purpose. So it doesn't matter if it's based on region, and you can't use the term universal. It doesn't matter. You have Social Security, and nobody ever questions the legitimacy of Social Security at all. I find it interesting that conservatives who have an issue with welfare don't have a problem with Amazon and some of these other big companies getting corporate welfare benefits through taxation abatements. It's very interesting, man. The Fed just pumped $1 trillion into the market for the last 3 months, and no one seems to have a problem with that.
Yeah, the biggest spenders going are the Republicans, but then they talk about being spendthrifts in their conservative, if you will, doctrine as laid out by Barry Goldwater. It's a joke, but anyhow, that kind of thing is just out here. It's not, like I said, I was reading The Guardian. This was about 2 months ago. A Republican state senator who was working, of course, with the state and everything else like that. He was stating that, and he was out of a red state, saying we have to take a different look at what the Republican the Republican platform is now. We're going to have to take a different look at this. We're going to have to change this around. Now, I understand what he was saying, okay, and many others did.
Most of the South can't wait for that money. They can't wait for that money to start flowing.
But he was saying something very real about how they're going to have to move away from some of this, we're all super conservative, this Marxist game, and all of that rhetoric, as these guys were talking, is going to have to change, because the realities on the ground are quite a bit different than what people want to say up in the ivory towers. It's a different game on the ground. And these guys, state senators, various congressmen and so forth, who are close to the ground, are seeing exactly what's going on. And the game is different. You just talk to people. The MOT, he's a unique brother here, because he's driving across country. He's driving across country on a regular, consistent basis. One day he's in Pennsylvania.
Like delivering MREs, and they're giving MREs to these people in these areas. Like, dude, it's about.
Whoa! Hold on. Are you said they're giving out MREs?
Wait, MOT, you say they're giving out MREs?
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Are they giving out MREs?
Yeah, they are.
So okay. Okay, let me ask you this, Mike, because you did answer my question, and I do thank you for answering my question. So let me rephrase it. What is when we talk about UBI, what is the universal basic standard of living?
It has to be above the poverty level. It has to be above the federal poverty level. So if you yeah, go ahead.
Well, not necessarily a dollar amount, but conceptually, what would that look like? Does that mean that so we already talked about the statistics about that minimum wage rate not being enough for somebody to afford an apartment. So if somebody is making minimum wage, of course they will have to have roommates, and as an adult you may have an apartment with 3 adults in it, or you may have a home but you got the parents and then all of their adult children. They may have 4 adult children, all of them living at home.
Mm-hmm.
Is that acceptable? What can we expect as far as conceptually what the actual living conditions should be for this universal basic income to fund?
I think the perspective is something like a Singaporean, Japan model, or even maybe a Taiwanese model. They don't have these big, massive mansions in these countries. They don't have that, man. You get a nice 400 square flat, and some public transportation, and you eat 3 times a day. That's the sort of perspective of a universal basic income, where people don't have this sort of financial stress because of a debt-driven economy. And so I think what's happening here is you're seeing people, at least in the Stockton pilot, you're seeing people, even with the $500, has given them flexibility to either move to a better location, or to get some dental work done that they didn't have, that they couldn't afford before, or the basic staples of food, right? Food and shelter. I mean, that's what they found. Over 40% of the people bought food. So in this country, which is a first world power, the basic amenity that people are really looking for is nourishment. People are malnourished in this country. Imagine that. Nuclear weapons, aircraft carriers that don't work, bridges that are fucking decayed and dilapidated. People are starving in this country. And if they don't get if they can't resolve this, then the pitchfork's gonna have to come out. And so a universal basic income is supposed to come in and resolve this. But do you cut off the other services? I don't think so. I think you need to maintain those services as they already are in place. But a universal basic income is actually the right solution that they should have been working on in 2019. They wouldn't have had this problem now had they worked on this problem a year ago, when Andrew Yang was talking about this. And they called it socialism. And I always find it interesting that the very people who got a problem with socialism have no problem with corporate socialism.
I mean, but they're here to serve corporate socialism. Like, that's the point of the party. It's to serve corporate socialism. Like, it's socialism once it hits people. That's the only problem.
Yeah, I want to say this, and I'm a jump because I got to go.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that I will say about the UBI is that the mere fact that the UBI is even being discussed, not just here in the YouTube channels, but it is being discussed elsewhere on in the media. For me, and this is just my opinion, the very fact that this is even being discussed, it is a testament of the failure of the whole idea of free market capitalism, because you just can't fully depend upon it, because when in times of need, people die, and you're going to need to take care of the people.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mike. I just want to ask him something. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to say, Perfect Blackness, what you're talking about is right. I mean, if you looked at history, and I like to look at history because history is now. History with a 100 passes today in so many ways.
your perfect capitalism, we had many failures in it. We had a failure in about 1877. We had it first really begin to crash then.
Yep.
We then saw it again happen in 1907. Then we saw it again in 1929. We saw a full meltdown in 33. In 31 and 32. And then we had to come through with 33 and all the different stuff that came through there. Then, we had this, we went to that period, Second World War came through. Then we saw it really come up and hit very hard again in 87. And then from 87, we got out of that and we kind of floated through the 90s. And then we saw it in 2008, really, really totally crash again. So, through history, we've seen many crashes, and now they're coming at shorter intervals. So capitalism has failed many times. And back in 1907, just like we had to do in 77 of 1877, they had the barons had to come in and bail them out. And then in 2000, in 1907, it was the barons once again had to bail them out. And then 29, we had a big government game had to come back in, and then Roosevelt came in with his whole plan that they've been fighting against and trying to erase, since that time, and we've seen bigger crashes. So we've seen that many times, and I just want to answer somebody who was in the chat. I think it was the Hoodservative saying, we had a Marshall Plan, it didn't work. Well, the Marshall Plan did a lot of work. And the only ones
Marshall Plan didn't work. Who would say that?
This is someone who doesn't understand history. But
this is the reason why.
But that's okay. But I don't want to make a big deal about it. But the only ones who got the free money were the corporations. They got the free money. So and they're still getting free money. I don't think anybody here who understands how this economy works knows this. We know that this is the free money game going on right now. So for the corporations, corporate welfare is massive. So we have to really look at this thing in its proper context to see exactly what this thing really means for us across the board. And as of right now, the corporations got a lot of free money. Wealth is definitely crystallizing at the top. How are we going to work our way through this plan without some level of some kind of Marshall Plan or UBI to kind of get us through this and redistribute some of this wealth that's coming out there? I think the super wealthy are going to have to do anyway, because things are going to get that live, I do think. But we have to look at this thing for what it is. We got to look at this thing for what it looks like truly on the ground right now. I mean, we can't be stupid about this. And that's what bothers me a little bit, that people are not looking at this thing the way that we need to. Because this is Mike, go ahead. You want to say something? Go ahead.
Right, and I stay out of it, especially when I'm on the panel. I stay out of the chat. I just don't. I try not to.
No. We just want to answer questions, but I understand what you're saying.
Right. Yeah, but like I said, if free market capitalism was all it's cracked up to be, we wouldn't even be having this goddamn discussion about UBI. There wouldn't even be a need for it, and it is a need for it, because you just can't have millions of people, tens of millions of people, just let out on the goddamn street and then point at them and say, well, it's your fault because you just didn't innovate or whatever the fuck.
Well, we saw this with Occupy Wall Street. Okay, they were sharpening their pitchforks back then, and now the pitchforks are coming.
Well, they didn't have a pitchfork. They had plastic forks. They didn't have pitchforks.
They had sporks.
They weren't really serious about stabbing nobody.
Well, they sick the cops on.
They were plastic, and they really weren't serious with
they sick the cops on white boys. They sick the cops on.
So, but I got to get off. I'm going to get off.
Have a good one, bro. Have a good one, man.
All right, man.
I just want to answer a point in the chat. He says, so like old Soviet style housing. No, the problem is you don't have Soviet style housing. He says. He says,
what does a Soviet style house look like?
Yeah, global initiative, which was I was referring to UBI. Global initiative. We don't live in a global country. No, but we live in a global economy. Okay, shit stops working everywhere else. It's going to affect the United States too. If things stop working in the United States, it's going to drag everybody's economy down. This is a global initiative. Okay, if people don't have enough money to spend, the goods that you produce is going to have is going to go into a bubble, and if that bubble bursts, it's going to blow up in your face. Okay, this is a big problem.
Or if the country that's producing is in turmoil, how are you going to get your goods out of that country?
Yeah.
Fact.
Yeah, this is a global economy, not a global country, a global economy. And the US is the center mass of all of it. And if the US crashes, everybody else's economy crashes too. So it's a global initiative. So let me answer the second point from Jamal Williams. He said, so food, living space, and clothing is UBI, Mike. No, you're misinterpreting my point. UBI is meant to subsidize where people are lacking. Okay, if people are working at $11 an hour and they can't afford an apartment, you're gonna have to come up with the other balance. You're gonna have to. There is no other way around it.
I was going to add.
Mm-hmm.
No, I not to just, take too far off topic, but I was going to add, Mike, with regards to people discussing, they don't know if there's going to be UBI because of people not being out in the street. I was going to add too, you're going to have international influence that's going to jump on this as well too, to try to topple the system. Sort of like how they threw the accusation about these protests that, you know, there's international influence and people, anarchists. You're going to have that same element when you have all these people who are thrown out on the street because of evictions and all other things. So that's some pretty powerful forces.
Well, he said, you know, again, he says the hood conservative, Mr. Policy Man himself, he says, why is my screen frozen? Also, big cities are draining their tax base due to capital flight. Cortez just talked about taxing the rich, and even Governor Cuomo smacked her down. Yeah, but you have to understand, how did they get rich like that? Okay, those nice, you know, tax
capital gains rate reductions.
Yeah, things like that conservatives support. They support that. Trickle down economics. That's what they talk about, right?
Subsidies.
Yeah, all these write-offs and things they got. Parking their money. Apple parked $500 billion outside of the country, man.
And they're doing this with your money. But the hood conservative says I can't read when he says something about the Marshall Plan. I mean, these guys are finished. They don't even know what they're talking about half of the time up in here. You guys got to sit down. You guys really got to look. You guys just don't understand you don't understand the fundamentals of the game. Yeah. I'm totally convinced about that right now. No history, no fundamentals. You guys got a lot of reading. You got a lot of work to do, man.
Yeah, but you have to understand that it's deliberate.
No,
the gaps in history
I know it's
are made up by us being frustrated by the fact that they don't know the history. So by the fact that they don't know the history, they come off as trolling because we're actually telling the truth, and they think they're living the truth.
And they don't want to hear it. No. You know, they don't want to hear it. I've read this for decades. I could talk off the top of my head with ridiculous, crazy accuracy about this. This is not hard for me to do, but if you haven't read any books and you don't know any history and you just want to push a certain point just to sound crazy, then go ahead. But you're going to be challenged up in here, man. You ain't going to get on the panel and talk smack. You know you're going to get eaten alive. These guys are sitting around here talking crazy. Basically, they're in this, what I called a culture war. But that culture war ain't going to work right now, man, because what's going on economically here in this country is hitting everybody. And it's hitting us very hard.
Rural
you gotta be very real about it.
Because rural America, the exact people who gave birth to this shit, is going to take it home for everybody else in the country.
Yep.
That's who's going to bring it forward. Corporate America was using rural America to push all of this shit. Their own tax cuts, they use rural America to do this shit. Now look at the entire country after 60 years. Mm-hmm. Now, once they pissed off rural America, And rural America is gonna be wanting that money. They gonna get it, and there ain't enough Fox News in the world that's gonna be able to stop it. Nothing.
No, well, he says that UBI is a free money scheme. That's not a Marshall Plan. So would Social Security be a free money scheme too? What about the social services of your public libraries and your other public institutions? I mean,
we don't even have a separate tax for the military-industrial complex.
Right.
Like, come on, dude. Like,
I mean, but that's what I'm saying. These guys talk from no understanding, no policy, no understanding of ultimately the mechanisms of how this society and the economic game works. They don't know.
Dude, it's ball in hand and pool. That's what they're doing.
They don't know. But they're just talking. That's why people look at them like there's something wrong with them.
Yeah.
And I understand the game that they're playing, but it's not going to work.
Right.
Anyway, go ahead.
Cool, man. Well, let me get up out of here, man.
All right.
All right.
Now, I was going to quickly add to Nagon. There's a whole book out there called Dying Whiteness. And it talks where this guy who's a doctor has literally gone through and looked at Tennessee, I believe it's Oklahoma, or maybe Kansas or New Mexico. And he's just looked at how these people have just been torn out of the frame by these conservative policies over the years. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, this stuff is not even working for white folks. And we've got black conservatives proposing the same thing on our end.
Well, yeah, because what the black conservative has done, he's trying to go with the white conservative principles, but he doesn't quite understand them. Here, he doesn't really know what they really mean and stand for. He hasn't read it. They don't really look into it, but they go with the talking points that they may hear on Fox TV and haven't really read deeply into this thing. Now, if you are a true black conservative, you're a radical. You're a very radical person. And a real black conservative, as I will say one more again, is a black nationalist. And you will understand that if you really read the conservative agenda as laid down by the founders of it. I've mentioned before that these guys just haven't looked into. But I'm not arguing that anymore because I understand that it's not, somebody else told me it's not about them understanding something right. They don't want to talk about this thing realistically. It's not about that with them. And ultimately, somebody else told me that, and I must agree with them at this stage. I must agree with that. It's not about them knowing this. I understand.
Well, before we close out in the next 5 minutes, the thing is, I think we need to have an actual roundtable discussion with the hood conservatives. I think that
you mean like go down the line, like issue by issue, like
yeah,
like, hey, this is the conservative side, this is why it doesn't work, or
the conservative side. We need to hear their side rather than debating from the chat. Because the thing is, if you go into the rural South, you'll see lots of people who are malnourished, man. A lot of malnourished white Mazungas in the South, eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and stuff, man. That's where that stereotype comes from. People eating mayonnaise sandwiches and stuff like because they're poor. But it was the conservative policies that drove them into that. It wasn't Democrats that did that to them. These people, were running around with ringworms and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and lice in their head. And you're telling me that they don't need a UBI, they just need to go get a job? What the hell?
Mike, when I lived in Houston, Texas. Now this is not out in the country. I actually lived in the city, in Houston. And there were people that I worked with that had to fish so they could eat. Make that make sense. They had to fish so they could eat. So
while they had a job?
While they had a job, because in Texas is a right to work state. There's no unions out there.
Yep, fire you without cause.
So you could have a job and they could pay you minimum wage. Like I work in healthcare. There's people in healthcare. When I was in Texas, there was people in healthcare that were making like maybe
50 cents over minimum wage.
It's crazy.
And some states, they don't even, I don't even know if Texas is one of them, they don't even follow the federal minimum wage. They get around that loophole. I think Georgia's like that. Like they get below paying the federal and they follow the states, which is a little bit lower.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, like Dr. Phoenix says in the chat, come to Wisconsin. White folks are standing on the corners in black neighborhoods. Imagine that. Mazungas out there shaking their cup, looking for change, man.
Hey Mike, do you remember when I was coming off the I was in Harlem by Starbucks on 145th Street or whatever. I'm walking, no, I'm going 125th Street, 125th Street Station by Madison, and I'm walking up the street. A Mazunga is asking me for money, and I'm like, Mike, can you believe this? I'm in Harlem, and a Mazunga asking me. Came by walking, he's like, yeah, man, but you know. Yeah, well, you know, I'm a little short of money. Can you help me get a cup of coffee or something, man? You know. I'm like, he was talking all proper and shit. I'm like, oh shit, Bazooka asking me for money in Harlem. Yeah. Dogs, they in Harlem asking brothers for dough.
Well,
stop it, y'all. Yeah. I was on the phone with Mike. I was on the phone with him. Anyway.
Oh yeah, if you come to Boston, you can go to the financial district. You'll see Mazungas out there peddling their kids, you know, begging for change, man, with placards, man. So,
listen, you come anywhere in Seattle, you will see them in droves. Listen, I see Middle Easterners begging for money out here. I mean, it's crazy.
That's bad.
I see Middle Easterners begging, Indians begging, Indian homeless. Like, matter of fact, I was in Canada, and there was a chick I was dealing with. We drove past this doggone drugstore. We saw her cousin, her own flesh and blood cousin, not no play cousin, her literal cousin was out there begging for money.
That is one thing I have never seen. I have never seen an Indian person. I've never seen a Chinese person begging for money.
Oh no, you'll see plenty of them here. But the thing is, the hood conservative will have you believe if we had a Marshall Plan, everybody was working, you know, and if you just pulled your pants up and you know, just obeyed the law, you know, everything would work fine for you. You know, if we just had more traditional families, that would solve all of this. And so,
which family is literally driven by policy and the economy. That, like the family structure has literally followed the economy.
No, family is driven by black love.
It's driven by game.
Shit.
No, it's driven by game. You know, the hood conservative would have you believe that the hood conservative would have you believe that we shouldn't have a UBI because, you know, people won't work then. As if
those women won't come back to the table.
Yeah, the table, you know, the table with the AC Doocy backgammon board there, you know, when they fold it up and they walk outside, you know, it makes it look like they're professional on Wall Street. In reality, ain't nothing but chips in there and motherfucking AC Doocy.
No, the conservative, he tight. Yo, man, he tight. Oh, he tight. But look, at the end of the day, man, we're gonna have to really look at this issue because I think we're gonna start seeing this this UBI really start to shape up into something kind of, as we say in a Brazilian Portuguese, permanente, and you know, which means kind of permanent. And, I think we're gonna start seeing some of this, man. I don't know what else to say for right now, but I think that's kind of where we're headed.
I was gonna quickly add to Mike and Nagone. You got to think about how this is going to look on the U.S. from an international perspective. You know, the U.S. has always sort of tried to sell itself as this city on a hill and, you know, come here for prosperity. That narrative falls apart. Why are these people even going to not that you really have people following you like that, but why are these people going to really want you involved in their country when it's like, look at yours, it's dilapidated, falling apart?
Well, that's what Trump said when he wanted to, stop all these people from coming from these countries. He said we need to bring in more people from Norway and Sweden. They examine their economic, portfolio.
Like, nah.
He said no, we don't need to come there.
Yeah, as soon as I heard him say that, I was like, this dude doesn't understand Norway and Sweden and the standard of living there versus here.
Doesn't. I mean, I was there in the 90s, and I had a very close girlfriend at the time there. And I was going back and forth. It was actually Copenhagen, it was more Denmark, but it's very, very similar. And their issue was talking to a father and talking to all these other folks who, he was in the oil business, and they were doing very well. As a family, they weren't multi-billionaires or anything, but they were doing well. Daughter was living in a cottage house right next to him with her son. Okay, so there was another daughter in there who had their son with them, single mama. But anyway, that single mama haven. I just wanted to break that down for you. I just throw it in there, maybe for balance. But yet they questioned, our insane desire over the American dream. They thought it was more of a nightmare. They looked at what we were doing, even back then, 90s, like, you guys are spending all this for homes, all this. They thought our game was whack. Didn't really want their folks really to come over there. They thought they had things working well in their country. And he tried to offer me a job with this corporation. He tried to get me over there. I was a broker doing really well. He's like, we can get in the finance board and all this, blah, blah, blah. He was trying to get me to work there. Her dad was trying to get me to work there, literally. And circumstances as they were, I didn't do it. But they did not envy our game over here. They thought it was fucking out of whack, and they were right.
He says we weren't a superpower until after.
So Nagone, basically, you saying you were.
Oh, say that again, brother.
Yeah, you broke up, Triz.
Oh, you broke up, Triz. Triz still there?
Oh, my bad. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was saying so basically, Nagone, you saying you was SYSBM in the 90s.
Dog. I've been on this shit for the last 30 years. You all talking about SYSBM? Y'all think you made this shit up? Shit, I was SYSBM before half of y'all was a flagellate in your daddy nutsack and a swivel in your mama's hips, boy. That's how long I've been at this game. Long time.
Yeah.
But anyway, go ahead.
And so the Hood Conservative says we weren't a superpower. Wait a second. He says we didn't become a superpower off of UBI. Actually, you did. The Homestead Act would prove that. Okay.
Yeah, a fact. Oh, Mike.
Homestead Act, land grant institutions, colleges.
Oh, beautiful. That's right. We gave them schools. Even gave them a like a tutor. They call them like a countyman who came in and literally
agents. Yeah,
agents who actually came in and helped them to show them what to do, and then gave them, once again, abated or low interest loans, government loans.
Yeah.
That they had in which to set this land up. They were totally set up. They were totally underwritten. And then these were the same people that were telling you to pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny?
They were very much socialist, Mr. Hood Conservative.
Yeah, you still got extension agents today who go out to these farms and help these farmers with, whatever, newest technology, techniques, all of that.
That's exactly correct. But see, when you're talking to these other guys, Mike, they don't know this history. They can't speak extemporaneously about this. They got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
Now, Hood Conservative, I already told you your homework assignment. I told you to go study the conservative movement, the founders of it, and follow that up, not only from that time from 64, take that right through the 80s. That's your first section, and then bring it over to neoconservatism, and then look at the major players in there and look at the position that they've taken and match that up against the Democrats and their spending and their policies as well. And let's talk about differences. It's a lot of work. You got to read that. I told you to do your homework. You haven't done it yet.
Yeah,
and get on your history.
Yeah. Well, he also says oh my God, everything is welfare. The Homestead Act, yeah, was basically UBI.
Oh, very good.
It was a
Very
form of UBI, and Jim Crow was a form of communism.
Very good, man. Very good. Guys can't get with this, man. They don't understand it. You got to understand the fundamentals here.
Hey, you're worried about the Chinese being communists and the Russians and the Soviet Union. Well, you had a very communist style system in the United States under Jim Crow. What part don't you understand about that? Anyways, let's get out of here, man. Shalom, everyone.